To turn on and then turn off.
Well, welcome everybody. Can you hear me on this? You can't hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome. We are working with theater mics tonight. So you're about to see me mightily struggle with a hairpiece and not be taped and all of that.
Hello?
So we're all learning how these
Hello?
work right now. Bear with us. We're going to test them. We also have 2 board members who are calling in, and we need to figure out how to mic them. So, board members, just in general, we're if you need assistance, flag someone down. Please learn. I know we all know how to mute our other mics, but figure out how to mute, play with your equipment, and we'll get going here in a minute. Thanks so much for your patience.
What's that?
Oh, I see it.
What's that?
Okay.
Which one's this?
To mute.
I don't think it can mute. It only goes on when you're listening.
Okay.
So if you're not talking,
You're on. Oh yeah, and do like a good thing. We did that instead. I don't know.
You had to like volunteer and all that.
Yeah, we did that.
And then the way he designed it, and it was a teacher. And he was like,
I was good.
can you get on?
Yeah. I don't think we're. Just saying.
oh, yeah.
Hold on.
Test.
Eric, you good?
All right. Can you all hear me?
Eric?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
How about now? Can y'all hear me?
Just about ready to get started.
Network not available.
Very quiet.
Okay.
No. I finally figured out how to do this. I'm all in. All right. That's better, right?
Yes.
I'm the only one with a different mic.
You should be.
I got the special mic. All right. We're figuring it out. Let me know. Wave your hands if you can't hear me at any point in time. All right, folks? Sound good? Oh, you can't hear me, can you? Okay, thank you. Just wave your hands if you can't hear me. All right. We have all board members good? Know your mics work? All set? We have Eric Boyer calling in. He will be joining us in person as soon as he gets off the Northeast Extension, so I hear. Eric, can you hear us and can we hear you? Oh, wait, don't do it yet, Eric. We need a mic on you.
Go ahead, Eric.
I'm here.
All right, I heard that. We're good. And Candy Cruz, you're calling in. Are you mic'd and can we hear you? And I can hear you, but I'm right next to you. Can everybody else hear her? No, can't hear Candy. Let's try again, Mike. Try again, Candy. Anything, people? Can the board hear her?
I can.
But the board can hear you, but the audience can't. All right.
Test.
Here. You really just have to eat these mics, huh? All right. Try again, Candy.
This is Candy Cruz.
Hey, we got you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to blast your...
Jim is.
We're working on this. Oh, now I'm off entirely. All right, there we go. All right. We're just going to make do. All right. I would like to call this meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Okay, we get a preliminary call to order. We have all board members in attendance, 7 in person, 2 calling in. We expect Mr. Boyer to show up in person at some point. And we're moving on then in our agenda to visitor comment. I have quite a few visitor comments for this evening, starting with Shannon Stokes. Yeah, we're gonna figure out. You're the guinea pig with the microphone, so we're gonna wait till you figure it out. No. Pull the toggle towards you. Nope.
He's coming.
Is there? Oh, how about now?
There you go. Well done.
Good
Well done.
eve-
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think it worked. No, you cut out. Yeah. Actually, can we just give her some, like, Ethan? Can you just hand her your mic back? Because you can just hold it like a microphone. Yeah.
Is there a timer someplace?
I hear hand signals back here,
Yeah.
Ms. Lively, and they're going to keep time for us. And I'm going to get a signal when it cuts off. They're going to give me just a high five sign when the time's up, and we'll wrap up accordingly.
Thank you.
No, I can't hear you.
Can I?
There
just
you
shout?
go. There you go. Go to the podium. Take that with you. We'll. Thanks for bearing with us, folks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to thank you all for your service to our community by serving on the school board, first of all. I am speaking tonight to urge you to consider 2 critical theater positions required. The first is an assistant director for the fall play, and the second is an assistant director for the spring musical. These 2 positions do not currently exist as funded through the school. Assistant director positions are necessary. I'm sure you all agree that appropriate adult to student ratios are necessary for student safety, for liability, and for supervisory needs. The huge scope of logistics for communication, for student involvement, just the physical movement with theater puts all of these more in line with sports rather than clubs. Students are in various parts of the building, backstage, in the booth, dressing rooms, and we really need more than just one adult supervising the number of students who we have. Every sport in our district with 20 or more students at every level has a paid assistant coach. For the 40 students who are backstage, in the booth, on the stage, and dressing rooms, I urge you to get an assistant director for the fall and the spring. In addition, we will have other people introducing other roles that we're interested and motivated to hire for, including music director and pit orchestra director. Of course, as you can tell, we need more working, functional microphone packs, and we're asking for those. We are also requesting an annual theater budget increase. We would like to see it at $25,000 per year. Granting the requests will allow our theater students to have the resources necessary to have a functional, reliable, safe, and stable theater program, which they, just like every other student in our district, truly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Lisa Maloney.
This is my first time using one of these.
Me too. My first time using one of these too.
Testing.
There
Can
you go.
everyone hear me okay?
Well done.
All right. So at the last school board meeting, directors on this board specifically stated that they wanted arts and theater funding to appear as an agenda topic at the next school board meeting, which would be tonight. That's why there are many people here. They wanted to hear what all of you have to say about that topic. Clearly, there's a public interest. Unfortunately, as we look at tonight's agenda, there is nothing about theater or arts at all. I do understand that in the June 4th Facilities Committee meeting, there was an agenda item that was the library RFP where discussion about the auditorium may have been had. Hopefully we'll hear something about that in the committee reports tonight. But that is only a portion of what is needed, and it really doesn't equate to an agenda item that really addresses the breadth of what these programs need. Specific information about outside spend to support our programs has been provided. Specific requests have been made. Yet the district parents, so far it seems, will have to yet again fundraise in the coming school year for what other local schools provide as part of their annual budgets. We want you to know we're disappointed. The lack of action by a board that has stated numerous times in this forum of a school board meeting that you support the arts, we're just shocked that nothing has come to fruition. The message that you are sending to these kids who participate in these programs has been heard loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I have Renee DiMico.
Hello?
Well done. There you go.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. The last school board meeting made it clear that there's still a large amount of confusion about what the quote theater budget actually is. I feel like it's impossible for anyone to have a robust discussion and make an educated decision about the theater program without understanding truly where the money in that budget comes from. So, I know we've been through this before. I'm hoping I can make this a little easier. The theater budget or fund that is referred to in previous meetings includes the combination of the following. 1, a fixed income. That is the budget provided from the school, currently $12,000 per school year. 2, variable income. Anything else beyond the budget provided by the school, including ticket sales, concession sales, fundraising, donations. So, to be clear, the fixed figure is the only piece that's a given. Anything in the variable section can change every year. If parent involvement decreases, the amount of money coming in from concessions, donations, and fundraisers all decrease. Ticket sales could be poor for a handful of reasons, but this also somewhat depends on parents as well, as they are the ones that do the entirety of advertising and promotion for the performances. That variable amount all hinges on parental efforts to contribute to the operating costs of the program. Now that you understand that there are only 2 sources of funding for that theater budget, the fixed and the variable, here's what I'd ask you to think about from your own financial planning experiences. In many jobs, you receive a salary, which is fixed, and maybe a bonus like stock options or money that would be your variable. As you plan your household spending budget for things like vacations, cars, college, I think we all know that it's pretty risky and irresponsible to include the potential bonus amount in those planning calculations. Since your bonus can change from year to year, you shouldn't have a car payment or mortgage, for example, based on anything other than your fixed salary. However, that's what's being asked of the theater department. They're being asked to plan and build budgets for a program based on the hope that the bonus will be enough. And please keep in mind that this program not only has a high number of students involved, but it has a very high level of exposure to the community throughout the performances. The speakers after me will provide more detail, but I hope that you now have a more clear understanding of what that theater budget actually entails. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Pat D'Amico.
Good evening. As Renee just explained the fact that the theater budget consists of fixed and variable incoming monies, I'd like to give you some additional figures. It costs on the very conservative side roughly $50,000 total to put on a spring musical and $10,000 for the fall play. This does not include purchasing the rights to the shows. So that's a total of $60,000. Again, that's a conservative estimate. The school-provided budget is $12,000 and therefore only approximately 25% of the total operating costs of putting on 2 shows. The remaining 75% of operational costs has to come from those variable funds, which again are never a guarantee. It can vary widely from year to year. This should strike you as a problem, but in case that hasn't happened yet, here are some additional figures. Purchasing the rights to the play and musical typically costs $6,000 to $8,000 each year. So right out of the gates, more than 50% of the school-provided fixed funding is used for the theater program to just open their doors. Cost of materials for set building, costumes, and props have increased roughly 30% in the last few years with no budget increase provided. Beyond the figures, here are some other points that hopefully raise some concern. You want your directing team to be responsible, sound financial partners with administration, but as Renee stated, you're asking that team to plan shows and budgets without a stable fixed budget. There are no other clubs or sports that we're aware of that require more than half of their operating expenses to come from variable costs, which are highly dependent on parent contributions. Booster clubs, for example, typically use concessions and fundraising money for season-end banquets, shirts for their students, and gifts for coaches. We, on the other hand, are being asked to ensure that the theater program actually functions with the money we raise. It doesn't go to t-shirts or year-end banquets. I'm sure you'd like to stop hearing from us, and trust me, we'd like to stop needing to be here. With the surplus money available, along with the other expenses that have been quickly approved, we're just asking that you provide our students with a functional and reliable theater program. You can start right now by adding the following into next year's budget: the addition of more school-funded personnel positions with short-term critical needs being an assistant director for the fall play, an assistant director for the spring musical, a music director, which is needed every year since the spring musical requires an actual music director, and a pit orchestra director. The purchase of at least 20 new microphone packs, and an annual school funding budget of $25,000 increased from the current 12. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Tammy Evans.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, maybe try again, just so we're sure.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So I'm here to support our talented theater students and to add my voice to those who have requested year after year that the school board demonstrate at least a good faith effort to show you support the students whose talents and interests are in the arts. I want to reiterate the points by Renee and Pat about the amount of the actual district provided money that was proposed in the budget for next year, because in the past meetings, some members appeared to believe that roughly $43,000 of money was budgeted for the theater program, when actually the district money is only $12K. You guys approved just in the last meeting buying new lawnmowers that cost almost 3 times that amount of money. It's the equivalent, the rest of the money, of the 43K is money raised through parents and student fundraising efforts, donations, ticket sales. That money is the equivalent of like the football parents booster club. The money raised by the athletic parents groups, though, is not considered by you to be part of that program's budget for the full year. The money those parents raise is used for extras, like Pat said. That should be true of the theater parent funds as well. But year after year, we've been given a budget that barely covers the licensing fees of the 2 productions. And almost all of the operational costs, as Pat said, has to come from the parent generated money. You'd find it absurd to tell the football parents group that they need to fundraise to cover the cost of stadium lights or sound equipment for the announcer or the football players, that there isn't enough money for each of them to have shoulder pads and a helmet. So either they have to share or just play your best without them. But the theater budget is supposed to also be used to cover what should be facility budget costs like basic auditorium lighting, sound technology, and the entire musical cast is supposed to perform with like a dozen old mics that glitch in and out and actually shocked the student this year. We want to make it clear that we're in no way saying that there should be less funding for our sports teams. Many of us have kids on those teams as well. What we are asking for is something a bit closer to equity for the theater students. We've made repeated annual requests to spend what in comparison is just a little money to allow the theater kids to have their success determined by their own skills rather than a lack of needed resources. This year, we need you to be the school board that ensures our district supports and values all of our students. Here's a list of the minimum theater budget needs for the upcoming school year. $25,000, which does not include basic stage lighting and sound equipment, 20 to 25 mic packs, not just the wiring, and stipends for the assistant directors for both the play and the musical, a music director and a pit orchestra director for the musical. And we need a new laptop assigned to the theater director, just as they're assigned to our other teachers, because the one that you guys loaned us last year died and almost kept our show from being able to go on. Thank you in advance for supporting theater in the Southern Lehigh School District.
Thank you. Next, I have Sophie W. And actually, Patrick D., I see you. Keep coming, Sophie. But I had an idea. Between the two of you, you're familiar with mic packs. Do you think you can clip that to the mic so y'all don't have to hold it? Between the two of you, can you engineer that? And if not, we'll just keep on keeping on. But even that tiny little one, can you clip the mic to that at all so you don't have to hold it? You know what I mean? If not, that's fine. I just thought I would help y'all out. The smaller mic, yeah, exactly. Good job. Take that off.
Check, 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 check.
Oh, that's so much better. Y'all are just going to have to lean in, but well done.
All right.
That way you can hold what you're talking about. Thanks. All right.
Hello.
Whenever you're ready, Sophie.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Lean in. I'm sorry, but
It's okay.
you're perfect.
Hi, my name is Sophie, and I'm a rising sophomore. As a freshman, I was involved in the theater program throughout the entire year, participating in both the fall play and the spring musical. When we heard that there was $4 million in next year's school budget that hadn't been used yet and saw that other groups were getting their requests approved, even the expensive ones, quickly we all figured it was the best time to ask for what the theater program needed to be honestly just functional and reliable. But having watched and attended these meetings since then, it's been extremely frustrating. It should not take several meetings just to get this placed on the agenda so you can all begin to discuss the issue at hand, but it seems like it's always just dismissed because some of you think our budget is sufficient. When we have to beg for functional equipment and just pray that our music doesn't cut out, that's not sufficient. From what we as students can see, it doesn't feel like any other extracurriculars required numerous students and parents to speak about what their needs are in order to be heard, over and over, with no significant progress made. And here's how it feels to me. It feels hurtful and kind of mean that we, as students, show this much support and passion for our craft, and we're made to feel like we aren't even an afterthought. Theater is a wonderful, inclusive, and amazing space for so many of us. It does not need to be this hard to help us build a program into one where we aren't depending on our parents to scrape together money just so we can perform at our best. So this is all we're asking to be added to next year's school budget, and I bet it's a lot less in total than many of your other approved expenses for next year for other groups. 1, the addition of at least 4 school-funded positions. Especially critical are the assistant director for the fall play, assistant director for the spring musical, music director, and pit orchestra director. 2, the purchase of at least 20 new microphone packs. And 3, an annual school-funded budget of $25,000 increased from the current 12. Granting these requests will allow us to have the resources necessary to have a functional, reliable, and stable theater program, which we deserve just like any other student in any other activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick D'Amico is next.
Can you hear me?
Indeed.
All right. Hi, my name is Patrick, and I'm a rising junior in Southern Lehigh High School. I've been involved in the high school theater program for 2 full years, performing in the past 4 productions, 2 fall plays, and 2 spring. Oh, there we go. You've heard a lot about the requests for increased theater funding and staffing tonight and during many, many previous meetings. Hopefully you're finding all of that information helpful, but I'm not here to talk about that. I wanted to give you another perspective on why our parents, directors, and peers have basically been begging you for help for so long, and that's from a perspective of a performer. There's almost nothing I love more than performing in theater. The community here is one of the places that I feel truly accepted and welcomed. This year, I played Gomez Addams in the Addams Family Spring Musical, and there was amazing dialogue. I got to sing incredible songs, and I had some of the best co-stars ever. And every night before the curtains opened, I should have been incredibly excited to go out there and perform such an amazing role. My excitement was diminished because I always had a pit in my stomach of worry that my microphone was going to cut out in the middle of a solo, or the lights would glitch out and we'd be performing in the dark. I'm just one performer up there, though, and I know that for every one of us, cast and crew, had these worries every single night. Not just for the Addams Family, but for all 4 of the productions that we've had in my last 2 years, and probably before that too. Not only should we not have to have those pits in our stomachs, that's a given, right? But it's important that you know that there's a lot riding on these performances, just like there can be a lot riding on an athlete's performance during a game, for example. While it may not seem like a big deal to everyone here, things like Freddie nominations or wins could actually help someone get into a performing arts program in college, like someone scoring a ton of touchdowns, helping land them a spot on a college football team. If our microphones aren't reliable and our lighting isn't working well, or our music tracks won't play because the school-issued computer crashes 40 minutes before a sold-out show, these are things that severely affect morale, performance quality, and even potential future opportunities. All we're asking for tonight is to have the school's help to pay for things that will allow us to perform with that awesome blend of nerves and excitement that comes right before the curtain goes up, and not the fear that our equipment will leave us silent or in the dark. All we're asking for right now is that you vote to include the following in next year's budget. New positions paid by the personnel budget, such as the assistant director for the fall play, the assistant director for the spring musical, a music director, and a pit director, both for the spring musical. Second, an increase in our school-provided budget to at least $25,000 per school year. And third, the purchase of at least 20 new microphone packs like these. Granting these requests will allow us to have a functional, reliable, and stable theater program, which I feel we all deserve, just like any other student in any other activity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Kyle Gangwer.
Hello. First, I'd like to say that I don't understand, and I'm a little concerned that meeting after meeting, student after student, parent after parent has come here to talk to you about theater and budgeting, and it still wasn't worthy to put on an agenda, even for a discussion. That said, I'd like to talk to you about the message you are sending to our theater, music, and arts students. They see the difficulty we have had requesting and receiving needed equipment, funding, and staffing. They also see multiple other clubs and sports making much larger monetary requests that are granted quickly and easily. They also see money being spent on various athletic items. For example, over $5,000 is spent per year just on ticket takers for athletic events. We've been asking for a similarly priced spotlight for years, to no avail. They see there is a large disparity between what our district is willing to pay for the athletics and what they are willing to pay for theater and the arts. They also see the very visible eye-rolling and other displays of impatience and frustration from a certain few board members as theater requests are made. What bothers me the most about this is that you are even doing it to the students. Even if requests can't be granted, the theater community, especially the students, deserve respect and patience. It takes a lot of courage for these students to stand up in front of a room of adults, and when they are dismissed in this way, it is damaging and makes a very negative and lasting impact on them. Do better. These are just some of the examples of the messaging you are sending to our theater, music, and arts students. You have made them feel unheard and marginalized. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that theater and the arts tends to have a higher proportion of LGBTQ students, which is particularly important to note during Pride Month. I could argue that by marginalizing theater and the arts, you're marginalizing those students involved as well. In closing, I'd ask you to include the following in your budget allotment for the 2024-25 school year. The addition of 4 school-funded positions: assistant director for the fall play and for the spring musical, a music director, and a pit orchestra director. The purchase of at least 20 new microphone packs and an annual school-funded budget of $25,000 increased from our current 12. Granting these requests will allow the theater students to have the resources they need to be functional, reliable, and stable. Like any other student in any other activity, they deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Betty G.
Hello? Okay. Is this close enough?
Yep, that works. Thanks.
Hi. I'm here to talk about the need for a music director and a pit orchestra director. These positions are not paid for by the school, and the only way to get people to do it is if the director pays them with her own money or if parents pay them as a gift. The spring musical needs a separate music director because it requires someone that's trained in individual and group vocal coaching. Dr. Mayon said that if there was ever a show that requires music, you'll consider adding a music director, and there is a spring musical every single year, so a music director is being requested. I believe all the other similar-sized schools in our area provide for these positions within their district budgets. A pit orchestra director is needed because not having one is a detriment to the students and the directing team. We compete with our school musical the same way our athletic teams compete for trophies. We want to be competitive and earn our school more awards. We lose points for not having a pit orchestra. Not to mention, a pit orchestra would highlight even more of our Southern Lehigh talent and get even more students involved. We set our football team up for success by paying for offensive and defensive coaches who all have a different job to do. A musical needs different people for different jobs too, and help set us up for paying for these positions. I ask that you include the following in your budget for the next school year: the addition of 4 school-funded positions, an assistant director for the fall play, an assistant director for the spring musical, a music director, and a pit orchestra director, the purchase of at least 20 new microphone packs, an annual school-funded budget of $25,000 increased from the current $12,000. Oh, that's all of them, sorry. Granting these requests will allow the theater students to have the resources needed to have a functional, reliable, and stable theater program, which we, like any other student in any other activity, absolutely deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I have Maria Alt.
Hello?
Yes, well
me?
done. Yep.
Okay. I'm not sure why the major issue regarding the new Title IX changes, which takes effect August 1st and will affect every single student, is not on tonight's agenda. Could you please explain why? I spoke at the last school board meeting on May 13th. I wrote the school board an email on June 3rd. See it on the agenda. I'm not sure why you're not addressing this major issue. And why doesn't the Southern bathroom locker room policy tell you that you allow boys to identify as girls in the girls' bathroom and locker rooms and vice versa? Is it because you know that it's wrong? Is it because the majority of the community does not accept it? Please tell us why you're hiding all this gender identity stuff. And why do you continue to harm these children by affirming their false realities that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy? Southern Lehigh has a separate database for students who identify as the opposite sex and does not submit this information to FERPA, which is a major violation of FERPA and parental rights. Is this school board going to continue hiding gender identity issues from parents, all of the students, community members, and FERPA? I am urging the school board again to talk about this tonight. You we all know that you can talk about issues because you did at the last school board meeting when all these people talked about the theater stuff. So you guys had a discussion. So I know you guys can talk about this at tonight's school board meeting. This is also extremely important and affects every single student in this school district. The Title IX changes, the new ones take effect August 1st. So please tell the community now what your current bathroom, locker room policy is and what it's going to be come August 1st. Also, I noticed on the agenda, what is this about, this school-based access program? Why are we getting Medicaid in this program? Does this have to do with a social worker seeing students for mental health? Like, are we now paying a social worker in school? Like, what is this all about? I really hope that you go in detail and explain this because I'm not sure why this is being discussed and why do we need Medicaid? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jamie Caverly. And I'm sorry, any of you, please correct me if I say your name incorrectly. All right, good, thanks. I didn't mention that.
I'm going to have short people problems. Good evening. My name is Jamie Caverly. I have 3 kiddos. One will be attending the IS, which I am scared for. One will be in 1st grade, and another will attend kindergarten in 2 years. I would just like to speak tonight about the Education Committee, spearheaded by Mr. Carney. I am truly grateful to have been able to attend and participate all the meetings. Because of this, I'm excited to see a particular item on the agenda, the RFP for the full-day kindergarten. I believe this next step would not have happened without having the Education Committee. I know they, especially Dr. Trinkle, have worked very hard to start this process, and I look forward to seeing what the comprehensive feasibility study shows. I strongly encourage the board to approve this RFP so the district can have an idea on how to proceed with the possibility of a full-day kindergarten. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Julie Bird.
Hello, my name is Julie Bird, and I'm a parent in the district. My son is entering 3rd grade, and my daughter is entering kindergarten in the fall. I'm here tonight to urge the board to approve the RFP for the feasibility of full-day kindergarten. Dr. Trinkle, Mr. Kearney, and Carney. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'll take it.
I should have written it down Carney, just like you told me. And the Education Committee, thank you in particular for the support and effort that it took to bring this to a point where the board could vote. Full-day kindergarten offers countless benefits to our students, including allowing time in their day for social interaction, which I feel is just as valuable as academic programming. To the board, please consider approving the RFP. Full-day kindergarten is something that our district is lacking as compared to every other district in the Lehigh Valley. Our children deserve the academic and social opportunities it provides. I would also like to encourage the board to consider adding school counselor positions to our K-8 schools in an effort to bring the counselor to student ratio closer to the American School Counselors Association recommendation of 250 students to 1 counselor. At current, our intermediate school in particular, with a ratio of roughly 750 students to 1 counselor, is well beyond the recommendation and is something that should be addressed by the addition of another position to the IS faculty. In addition, the middle school, Hopewell, and Liberty Bell are also beyond the 250 to 1 ratio, but in the spirit of triage, the intermediate school has the greatest disparity and should be addressed most urgently. Last, I am also a Spartan Music and Theater alum, and now as a community member, I support funding the arts in a way that allows students to be, the programs and students to be functioning and successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Wyatt M.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, if you lean down, or feel free to adjust it up to your height and
All right.
stature as required.
This good?
Perfect.
All right. Hello, my name is Wyatt Mullins-Bell. I'm a member of the Southern Lehigh Speech and Debate team. I speak before you today to share with you some of the successes our school's team has experienced over the years and our growing needs as a result. The team was established by Mr. Long in the school year of 1992 to 1993. In our very first year, we had students compete at the state level and haven't missed the state championship since. We joined the National Catholic Forensics League in the following year and qualified students to the NCFL's Grand National Tournament. Since then, we have attended this national competition every year since 1994. That's 30 consecutive years where our team has competed on the national level. For the past 25 years, we have been a member school of the National Speech and Debate Association, formerly known as the National Forensics League. In the 25 years we've been members of this honor society, we have qualified and sent students to compete at the NSDA's national tournament 17 times, with our 18th appearance taking place next week. In addition to all of our previous successes at the national level, we continue to grow our national roster every year. Last year, Mr. Long attended the University of Kentucky's Tournament of Champions with students from our team for the first time ever, and students had competed at this tournament before. This year, our team made its appearance at the National Individual Events Tournament of Champions for the first time ever as well. At NITOC, we were one of 3 schools from the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States to make an appearance, and we had more students attending than any other school from this region. No other competitive activity at Southern Lehigh can boast a resume such as this. However, just qualifying for states and national competition doesn't necessarily mean we do well at them. But the truth is we do. Kylie Baker, an alumni who graduated last year, was a finalist in congressional debate at the NCFL's Grand National Tournament and a semifinalist at the NSDA's National Tournament. Evelyn Wang, another alumni, finaled last year at the UK TOC in original oratory. And at NITOC, we had all of our competitors break to elimination rounds despite this being our first appearance ever. This success comes from hard work. We start researching, writing, and developing speeches as early as August, competing every weekend with the exception of holidays from the end of October to the end of March, and prepare for nationals well into our summer vacation. We're basically a 4-season academic sport. Now, at this point, you're likely wondering why I'm up here yapping about our team's success and hard work. Our team needs money. The cost of tournaments gets higher and higher every year, and as our team gets larger, so too does the number of students we send to these prestigious competitions. This year alone, we have nearly a third of our team attending the NSDA National Tournament next week. I ask you, members of the school board, please consider expanding our team's budget. The money we expend goes towards giving us the opportunity to continue sharing our voices at the national level. An expanded budget means opportunities for greater success. As our team gains more recognition, Southern Lehigh as a whole gains more recognition. Success for our team means success for Southern Lehigh. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jonathan S.
Is that working?
Yeah, maybe center your mouth on the mic more.
Is that good?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Saunders, and I'm the debate captain at our speech and debate team. What I want to talk about today is the benefits of speech and debate. Many events in speech and debate, including the one I perform, require extensive research. This helps improve and for some even create a skill that's not only important to our schooling in our English, science, and social studies departments, but also a skill that is immensely useful later in life. In addition to that, the actual performance side of it creates a level of comfortability with public speaking. Public speaking is the #1 fear in America, and this is an activity that helps people better work through this. I know not only have I gotten better at public speaking since starting speech and debate, but my fear of it has decreased significantly. And I'm sure anyone else in the speech and debate team could tell you the same. Speech and debate also gives students the tools to talk about issues that they would otherwise not be able to. Speech and debate requires us to look at some of the most pressing issues in today's society, things like climate change, income inequality, social justice. This leads to having students that are not only educated on these issues of today, but have the capacity to discuss them with others. And having people with that ability is the first step to solving any problem like that. In addition to that, speech and debate has also really improved my problem solving and analytical skills. Simply the ability to look at a problem and think of logical solutions, to look at a work and see the meaning behind it, or to see an argument or plan and see the holes in it and how to improve it. These are such fundamental skills to getting through life and all taught and improved by speech and debate. This has a tangible effect on people's lives. I brought some statistics here from the National Speech and Debate Association, which also happens to be the largest honor society in the nation. To start, I have some of these, how these affect people's lives within high school itself. 31% of speech and debate participants attend classes more regularly. 36% of speech and debate participants see an increase in their reading test scores. 87% of speech and debate participants improve their analytical skills. 100% of speech and debate participants experience an increase in interest in their classes. And 100% of speech and debate participants are less likely to experience drug use, early pregnancy, or alcohol abuse. Lastly, I want to leave you with some statistics and how it affects people's lives after they graduate and leave speech and debate. 90% of people in speech and debate obtain a graduate level college degree compared to the US average of less than 20%. 15% are top ranking executives in their corporation, 30% are university educators, and 10% work in government. What I've gotten across here is just the profound impact that this activity has on those who participate in it, and how having the resources to continue doing this activity and continue participating in it and going into the competitions that we qualify for is so important for our students in this team. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Molly F.
Is this okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks.
Okay. Hello, my name is Molly Fry, and I'm a rising junior here at Southern Lehigh. I'm also the upcoming speech captain for the speech and debate team for the 24-25 school year. This coming school year will be my 5th competing on the speech and debate team. Similarly to the previous speakers, I'm here to stress the importance of this activity and to express concern regarding our team budget. The benefits of speech and debate make themselves evident through a multitude of different ways, whether that being the academic takeaways one gains from participating in any event offered, the habits and character one builds through the process of preparing for competition, performing and competing, and learning how to accept and apply criticism, or the immensely supportive and ever-growing community involved in this extracurricular, which is what I'd like to shine a light on today. On a personal level, this team has brought me some of my closest friends, and I know that many of my teammates would tell you the same. On a competition basis, I meet new people at every tournament. The overwhelming majority of the speech and debate community have been some of the most genuine, understanding, and willing to listen people I've ever met. Everyone's voice is heard at these tournaments. It's allowed me to meet and hear from members of cultures other than my own. I've heard speeches on just about any topic you can name, including the significance of different religious head coverings, the harms of racial stereotypes, the importance of destigmatizing substance addiction, and the oppression of the queer community. This activity provides a voice to anybody who has something to say and a community that is willing to listen. This is an attribute that I feel few other activities offered by this school have. The primary reason that my teammates and I have been able to have our voices heard for the past 30 years that Mr. Long has coached this team has been due to the school's funding. This year, with weather putting a stop to 2 of our primary fundraisers and team members advancing further on the national circuit than we ever have, we found ourselves in a deficit of $4,500. My teammates and I are here tonight to ask that more room is made in the budget for this activity so that our voices can continue to be heard and so that we can continue to hear the voices of others. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Oren B.
Is this close enough? Are we
Yes.
good? Okay, perfect.
That's perfect.
Hello, my name is Oren Bossert. I'm the overall captain of our speech and debate team, and I would like to wrap things up by pointing out the importance of Mr. Long to the forensics community as a whole and how this impacts our need going further into our years. Mr. Long is a nationally recognized coach for his ability to effectively organize and keep the legacy of speech and debate alive. Mr. Long has been coaching speech and debate at Southern Lehigh for 32 years. He founded the team and was able to build it up from the ground. Now, he is now the head of the Allentown Diocese Forensics League, a portion of the larger National Catholic Forensics League. With this role, he is responsible for leading many tournaments throughout the year that are vital for our team's success and for the Allentown area's success as a whole in speech and debate. Additionally, he was inducted into the Pennsylvania High School Speech League, or FISL for short, Hall of Fame in 2010, and now serves as state tournament director of FISL, ensuring that each year the Pennsylvania state tournament runs smoothly. This year, 540 entries came to the state tournament. It is because of Mr. Long that each of those competitors were able to display their talents to audience members from across the state. But beyond the state of Pennsylvania, Mr. Long holds an important place in the speech and debate community. He works in Tab Room, which is essentially the HQ of every tournament for the largest tournaments in the country. Next week, he will be working in Congress Tab Room for the National Speech and Debate Tournament, meaning he will be overseeing the competition of over 500 competitors from across the nation, ensuring that their competition over the week in Des Moines is fair and enjoyable. He is also co-chair of the Asian American and Pacific Islander Committee for the National Speech and Debate Association. This committee promotes equality for Asian competitors across the nation. Finally, Mr. Long was voted Coach of the Year in the Valley Forge District for his endless devotion to the speech and debate community, which leads me to the bittersweet problem that the team is facing. We are going farther than we ever have before, bringing more and more people to increasingly competitive tournaments where we succeed. This comes with the rising expenses for the team, surmounting our budget. Mr. Long has always promised that money will never be the reason someone does not go to a tournament. This has created a place where students do not have to choose between what they love and financial stability for their family. This has landed us in a deficit of $4,500 that Mr. Long is swallowing. If that does not show dedication to his team and community, I'm not sure what does. We ask that the board follows their promises made last meeting and amend the preliminary budget so that the team can see an increase of at least $4,500 this year and years following. Please show your support for your students, your staff, and your community by increasing our funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Amy Saunders.
This good?
Yes.
Okay. I'm here in my capacity as a former educator, a parent, and most importantly, as having had the opportunity over the past 2 years to volunteer in judging speech and debate competitions and getting to spend time with our school's team, as well as its coach, Mr. David Long. I felt it important to share my experience with you as you are making decisions about what organizations and consequently which faculty and students within those organizations are allowed to be given recognition and resources. When Mr. Long asked me to volunteer, I was willing because I had experience in speech, debate, and theater as both a student and eventually a teacher. I also wanted to connect and spend time with my son. What I did not anticipate was that over and over again, whether it be national qualifiers, state tournaments with teams from all across Pennsylvania, or national invitationals at places like Harvard and Princeton, I would be hanging out in judges' lounges or switching in and out of competition rooms. And when other coaches and judges would ask me where I was coming from, I would say, I'm from Southern Lehigh. And before I could continue, they would spark with recognition and then say, oh, of course, you're with David Long. I did not expect to be constantly reminded that our small district would hold national recognition, not just for its team, but for the tremendous asset that this team has in being led by such a universally admired leader in the most prestigious circles of the speech and debate organization in the person of Mr. Long. I'm here because the board may not be aware of how far-reaching Mr. Long's reputation extends and how successful our small school has been on the national stage of speech and debate because of his tireless dedication and expertise. Their success has led to a need for recognition in the form of resources from this board so that they can continue to achieve their highest potential. But more importantly, as we travel to tournaments, an opportunity that wouldn't exist without the skill and hard work of our students under Mr. Long's guidance, I have hope that the high value placed on David Long that we as judges have been able to witness wherever we are in the country would indeed be replicated within his home district with funding that would reflect those same high standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Last, I have Carolyn Boss. Help me with that when you get to the mic. I apologize. And you spoke before. I'm bad with names.
It's Bosha.
Bosha, thank you
Yes,
very much.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize I was going to go now. I figured.
Oh, if you would like to, no,
Now
if
is
you,
good. No,
it
now
popped up
is
on my
great.
list. If you want to defer to the end, you're fine. But if you want to go now, you're fine too.
Now is wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you. So much
Thank
for
you.
having me. I
Carolyn Bosha.
appreciate you all. I just wanted to speak on the same topic that was raised last meeting and again tonight. Trying to be a little more specific this time. So there were some questions raised about Title IX changes, which take effect August 1st. Those seem fairly simple to me. They protect against sex-based harassment and discrimination, including on the basis of gender identity, and promote accountability and fairness in the public school system. This would extend to the sports fields, and I can say as a recent transplant within the last year from the state of Vermont, where we had a very inclusive athletic program that I have coached teams myself with transgender athletes participating. It's been a beautiful experience that teaches athletes the value not only of what place they come in the competition, but also including their peers, no matter who they are or where they're coming from. It's never presented an issue on the teams that I've coached myself. There was a question raised about why should we affirm children's false realities. I wanted to address that one as a pediatrician who's cared for hospitalized children for the past 15 years, many of whom come into the hospital with eating disorders, post-suicide attempts, stemming from mental health issues, often related from a lack of acceptance in their families or communities. I can tell you that the prevalence estimates, this was published in the Lancet last year, of lifetime suicide attempts, severe psychological distress, and clinical depression among the transgender population when they're not supported by their community are 40, 39, and 52% respectively. These are staggeringly awful rates that are about 6 to 9 times more than the general US population. When children are cared for in a way that affirms their identity, their rates of depression drop to that of the general population. That's also published in the Lancet, and I'm happy to provide a reference for the board. So as for the question, why hide gender identity issues? Let's not. Let's celebrate gender identity issues and turn them from issues into just part of who our children are. The last question that was raised was, why do we need Medicaid? And I would simply address that one by saying that it provides healthcare coverage to about 80 million Americans who are some of our most vulnerable community members. We all might hope that we never need this service, but I can tell you that speaking from caring for very vulnerable people in the hospital setting for many years, we really, none of us can say that with certainty. Any one of us is one major accident or health issue away from being way above our budget health-wise and may need this service. So safety net programs can be sort of a moral barometer for a society and an indicator of how we care for those among us who unfortunately become, for one reason or another, our most vulnerable. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That concludes visitor comment. We will proceed with the rest of our agenda at this time. Starting with, sorry, my agenda is not scrolling. Here we go. We have the superintendent updates. I'll turn this over to you, Dr. Mayen.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaiman. I have
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Mayen.
Yes.
We can probably, if Dr. Ake Little needs his mic, we can probably retrieve it, or are you okay sharing with Mr. Pepe in case you have need? Okay, you're fine, Leave it there, Patrick, just leave it there, you're good. You're sharing. Oh, so you will need it. I apologize, Patrick. If you could hand that up, that'd be fantastic.
Perfect. Just gonna wrap it up just in case.
Oh, that's true. Pass the extra on down. Here we go. I'm tethered. Can you just, somewhere, Dr. Trinkle will take it. And we can either use it at the mic later on, or whoever needs an extra over there. I apologize, Dr. Mann, for
No, not at
interrupting
all.
you. There we
No,
go.
not at all.
We have our mic situation. I didn't leave him without one.
You
Appreciate it.
all set?
All
Okay,
set,
so
thank you.
first, I want to begin, well, by thanking student speakers as always, but especially want to congratulate the class of 2024. Thank you to Mr. Miller, our high school principal, our board. Mrs. Cruz played a very active role in our graduation. We had an amazing number of our professional staff in attendance, and it was just a great graduation ceremony for our community to send off the great class of 2024. The other item that I wanted to talk about is that in an upcoming meeting at the end of this month, we are going to have to advertise our board schedule for the following year. So we have to set a schedule for our meetings. It's something that we do every year. And we have been talking for a number of months about our meeting schedule, not only for the full board, our typical 2 meetings per month, but we also have a number of committees now that are actively engaged in the work of the school district. And I thought that maybe I would present a thought to the board, an idea to the board with respect to how we might look at those particular meetings going forward. So I passed around a sample schedule of what these meetings might look like. Currently, as board members know, we meet twice per month we used to call them a work session and a regular meeting, but now we have essentially 2 board meetings. The first one, like tonight, is primarily focused on issues and discussion, whereas the second one is voting, although that's not always strictly the case. And then during the course of the month, we usually have a meeting of the policy committee, the technology committee, the education committee, and the facility committee. And so this schedule that I put forth is an effort to offer one thought on how those meetings might be organized. And under this plan, we would go from 2 meetings per month for the board to 3 meetings per month. The first 2 meetings of the month would be for committee meetings. In the case of this example, the first Monday in August would be the facilities committee and the policy meeting. And on this particular night, the facilities committee would meet between 6 and 7, and the policy committee would meet between 7 and 8, or as long as they needed to go, after 8 o'clock. Then the second meeting of the month would be the second Monday, which would have to be the 12th. And we would have the education committee at 6, and then the technology committee at 7. And then one of the things that we put in was that in every subsequent meeting, the committee that goes first, the first time would go second, the second time in the event they needed a longer time to get their business completed. And so this would eliminate one general meeting a committee of the whole meeting per month. We would maintain that toward the end. But my thought is that this would give predictability where we would know all board members who wish to attend meetings could come out on any of those 3 Mondays per month. And it also would, I think, allow an established schedule where we could have perhaps even increased engagement, knowing that there is predictability and that board members would know what nights per month they would be going out, and we could get schedules out to the community and update people, and so they can kind of get into a rhythm of this. And again, this is not the only way to do it by any means, but I just thought I would put it forth for the board's consideration. I'd be very interested to hear some feedback, because we do have to try to get a schedule ready for a year's worth of meetings come August. So perhaps this is something we could, if we can, act on in our next meeting later this month. So that concludes my initial introduction. I'm very happy to hear any discussions or feedback on this idea.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mann. And actually also for background, I know I think you probably brought this up in December, shortly after our reorganization meeting with Vice President Cruz and myself. And I know you have talked to committee chairs about this idea and this schedule, as well as committee members in that context. So we've talked about this extensively, repeatedly, for the past couple of months. I will say that as a committee chair, and in talking to other committee chairs, I don't think any of the committee chairs were, in favor of this new format when it was discussed in those committees. And I think a majority of committee members also were not in favor of this new format. However, we repeatedly stated that the predictability of meetings and a year-long schedule where people could plan to attend was absolutely necessary, and getting that tight meeting structure was absolutely something we all want. In fact, policy committee has done that. We set our meetings for the entire year right off the bat at a predictable first Wednesday of the month kind of a thing. I think it worked really well. I think, the reason why we didn't, when we formed the committees in the beginning of the year, December, January timeframe, we didn't set that predictable schedule was in conversation with you and with Ms. Cruz as officers and superintendent. You were reticent to, because committees were a new structure, and you didn't want to set many meetings. You just wanted to see how it went. And I agreed. I think that was a fine idea in collaboration with you. Set a few meetings and see if we need all these committees or see what the frequency of those would be. But I think we've had enough time now where we think the committee structure really is useful and the way to go. And I don't mean to speak for everyone. I just mean to move this conversation along so that we don't belabor it. But my understanding is committee chairs and the majority of the board don't wish to pursue this particular format this time and would like to absolutely find a schedule that enables predictability and consistency and kind of, really dialing in on making those committee meetings. But one moment, then you can speak. But that's where I think we landed. And to drive that, that's just where I think for the past couple months, the conversations that have taken place, that's where we are. So if any committee chair at this time would like to, just, Chris, let me finish 1 second. I'm just going to finish my statement. You would like me to speak?
Move it along.
Move it along and not
piece.
belabor the issue?
Correct.
Like
That'd
this?
be great. That'd be great.
So if any committee chair at this time, if I misspoke for you, or if any, if that is not, if my understanding is incorrect, please. I was, in fact, Chris, trying to move it along
I
with
just
that
had a
statement.
question about the timing of, you mentioned the policy.
I
committee.
can't hear what you're saying.
You can't hear me?
No. The audience can't hear you and I can't hear you. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Yeah. So what time does the policy committee meet?
Policy committee meets, we've set a Wednesday. I see where you're
The
driving,
time.
Chris.
The time of the day.
Yep, I know. You're trying to make a statement that it's inconvenient for the public and for you to
It
attend.
is. No, I mean, I'm not.
Because
just to mistake the
policy
obvious,
committee,
that it's
policy,
certainly inconvenient for, I think, other working board members and, other working families to attend some of these important meetings. So what I personally like about this, and it keeps the committee structure, you still have the committees, is that it starts at 6 o'clock. It starts after work for most individuals so that they could attend these important meetings.
policy committee is
That was
the,
going to be my point. That's it.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you, so I struggle to answer your question when you're done. Done?
Done.
Thank you. Policy committee meets the first Wednesday of the month at 2 o'clock. That was arranged so that we are considerate of our administrators. It doesn't take them away from their families in the evening. Policy is unique, unlike any other committee, in that everything discussed is in the form of written policy. We meet at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. We have had community members attend those. It might not fit one traditional schedule, but it might fit another. Policy committee is also unique in that not only do we talk about a policy at least once, if not multiple times during that committee meeting, however, also the exact policies and everything that is discussed comes before the board 2 other times during a general board meeting for discussion and examination in a first and second reading. So for that reason, the policy committee felt that the public would have 3 opportunities. One during the day for those individuals who don't have a traditional work schedule and perhaps want to weigh in on policies while their kids are in school or they work a different shift. And then also, again, you get to weigh in on policies in 2 different evening meetings.
What time does the education committee meet?
All other committee meetings are after a traditional work day ends.
At the educational committee, Tim, what time do you guys meet?
4
o'clock. 4 o'clock.
And that's so that teachers who are discussing education and curricular items
can come and weigh in and make presentations and being respectful of their time and
It does make
accommodating
it
their
harder for
schedules.
others who
sorry,
work,
what?
though. It makes it harder for others who work past 4 o'clock. So I would love to come to some of these meetings. I really would. I truly would. But those times are very inconvenient.
Okay.
And inconvenient for a lot of families as well. So.
And
I absolutely respect, the educators and the administrators, doing it shortly after their day, which I appreciate. I also think that having a more structured meeting structure such as this would also allow them to plan and be just as convenient.
Sure, appreciate that perspective. And there's nothing to say that we couldn't arrive at a committee structure that addressed those times without this particular format. Mr. Carney. I'm sorry, can everybody hear him? We're doing mic check for the first time. We're getting nods. Go for it. Mr. Carney, you mastered the mic apparently.
So first of all, I do appreciate the setting of a structure. And as you said, policy has it down. Education, we were working on it, but it was trying to fit everybody's schedule. So having a fixed schedule, I like that piece of it. Eliminating one of the public meetings, even though anybody can come to any of these meetings that they can make if it's convenient or possible. We don't have this many people coming to to any of our committee meetings. So I think one of my concerns is eliminating one, and even though it was said, and you corrected yourself that we vote at the end of the month. Usually that hasn't been happening lately. We've been voting at very important things any time of month. So my other concern would be to eliminate that. And I think I also spoke, just like we try to control the time on these meetings, but sometimes we can't. And there are going to be some things that might be timely, and to say that, even though I like having meetings about an hour long, to say that if we don't cover it, it's going to have to wait another month, when it could be something pretty timely, is another concern that I would have, that if we're putting a time limit of 1 hour on some of these, even though I'd like the idea of trying to get our meetings to 1 hour, that would be awesome. And I think also some of these committees were new and we had new people leading them. And I felt at least that as we went along, we got a better handle on it. And I know our last meeting was the shortest one that we had. Still a little bit long, but it was definitely shorter than the first one. So there's some things in this plan that I really do like, even though I would still look for something else.
Okay. Thank you.
You mind if I just make one other point? I do think if the time were more, even if it was more like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I think we would get more community engagement in the committee meetings. When I was on the facilities committee for 2 years, there was, I think, one individual who showed up. That was it. We didn't really have a lot of community engagement. And if it were structured and if it were consistent, I think we'd get more community engagement in the committee meetings, which I think could be very, very good.
Any other discussion on this point?
Yeah, I'd like.
I'm sorry, I
to just
heard a bunch coming from
put my
different
2
directions.
cents in here, huh? No, go on.
No, you're good.
No, you're
Go
a
ahead.
committee lead, so it'd be better to hear from you.
I was just going to say, in regards to structure, absolutely, I agree with it. In regards to everybody in the community and the people that are on this board and the administration to respect schedules and stuff, I think it's important that we do still have these committee meetings, as there's a lot of good work that goes on within these. My resentment against this particular schedule is the elimination of a whole board committee, because I do feel since November, December, since coming in, we've voted consistently in every single meeting, both meetings every month. So my fear is that we may potentially delay something that may come up that is important, that would need to be voted on. We would potentially be waiting a whole month versus potentially a week or two. So in regards to that, I'm fine with this, but I don't want to eliminate the general meeting. So in my opinion, where my head's at is we were presented here, Dr. Mann, with 3 dates. I would be more on the verge of 4.
Right. And there's nothing that would stand in the way of that prospect where we would say every Monday of the month, all 4, where 2 would be just as we now have committee of the whole, and the other 2 would be meetings of committees.
Well,
And so it would just be an addition of, I mean, if the concern was, and again, I just, in response, it's very fair to say that if our concern is, look, we really need to have 2 voting meetings per month, if we have every Monday of the month as a meeting where no change, we have our regular work-ish section where we have been voting for sure, and our general meeting as we have been doing. And then the other 2 meetings will be two committee meetings on the one night, 2 on the other. Again, there's 4 meetings per month. I think that would be respectful of people's time. It would allow the opportunity to vote. It would offer some predictability. And again, I'm not pushing it, but I'm just saying that in response to concerns, that might be another alternative for the board to consider. Mr. Boyle, thank
I
you.
love that idea, Mike. I think it's a great idea because we've already set aside our Mondays to be meeting Mondays, so we often don't have a lot of conflicts. Here's the problem, and I've said it many times, and so I'm a little frustrated. The Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit, CLIU, has a board that its board meeting, just like LCTI has an established Wednesday meeting, the CLIU meets on Monday nights every 3rd Monday of the month. And you have suggested scheduling meetings on that Monday repeatedly, and I'm the CLIU board representative. And therefore, we cannot afford me or whomever is the CLIU board representative the opportunity to participate in any board meetings held the 3rd Monday of the month, just as I would never schedule something during the LCTI board meeting. That is why the 3rd Monday of the month is reserved. So it looks like, generally speaking, there is a lot of good thought and a lot of takeaways we can take from this schedule and apply to a committee schedule that is not this. And Mike, we've been talking about this since December or January, and you've been coming and asking for this over and over. And we still are at a point of saying this is not what we want. So let's get committee chairs together. Let's ask committee chairs what they do want. Let's hit something that hits predictability and efficiency and a time of day that is most convenient. But I think this is something that we need to examine and have in play. And I think probably the best thing to do is get those committee chairs together to come up with that schedule that's predictable at this level.
Right, and I would, in fairness, Mrs. Gaiman, I've been asking since December for a public discussion of this because we've not had the opportunity to present board, and we're obviously looking to have input from everybody, and we respect the direction that people wish to go. But my request has been to have a public discussion, and again, making clear this is just an option, an opportunity for discussion. If the 3rd Monday of the month is a problem, we could potentially schedule a Tuesday for a meeting for that particular week of the month to be on a schedule, just as one alternative. And again, this just is my only thought is that we do have to put an advertisement in the paper. My hope was to have this considered as a full board. We very much respect the viewpoints of everyone who's offering it, and administration is very happy to respond in whatever way the board wishes.
But you can understand my frustration that this is what this same idea of yours has been presented multiple times, both in one-on-one conversations, in one-on-3 conversations, in more one-on-one conversations, in full board conversations, and every time the feedback has been, no thanks. Like, that's my frustration.
I don't want to dispute your thoughts, but that is not reflective of many board members have said, yes, this is a good idea, or yes, I'd like to discuss it more, or this has some good ideas to it. So I'm not sure that, at least to my ear, the feedback has been as universally non-supportive as you may suggest.
Okay, I believe you're right. There are many who have wanted this and agreed with this, but I believe a majority has not.
And that's great. And I would just look to say if we can come up with something by the end of the month, we'll put down a calendar and we'll get it in the newspaper so we can, again, move forward on this topic.
Let's do that. Let's have committee chairs make a concerted effort to put that together and come up with something other than this that addresses those needs. I think that's a great idea.
Emily, I just want to make sure that Steve gets a
Yeah.
shot.
Hey, yeah, you're
Yes.
right. Sorry.
Yes, it'd be great to give a little bit of input here. Is this on?
I don't know. Can the audience hear Mr. Mond?
Okay, great.
Sure. Yeah.
First of all, from what I've heard over the past weeks at least, is that this was a proposal that says draft on it, so I think it's just something to kick off the discussion, number one. Number two, the structure, as everybody said, is good. Thirdly, Monday nights are already a school board night. Fourth, I agree, we have an issue with the CLIU, so I would recommend, as Dr. Mann just mentioned, is maybe that goes on a Tuesday. We've had committee meetings on Tuesdays. That could be the 1 week in the month where we have Tuesday meetings. And, quite frankly, if we're going to work as a team, we want to have as many people involved in this as possible. This board needs teamwork. And in my opinion, if we were able to have a schedule similar to this, I'm not saying exactly like it, but where more than less board members can listen and be involved in these committee discussions, I think the better off we will be. The committees are supposed to be collaborative and bringing up policies and decisions. And previously, actually, when you were president, you had committee of the whole, right? With no committees really, except for a couple.
Incorrect.
Okay,
I've operated and president in both committees and committee of the whole.
Okay,
I've served as president for 4 years now.
right,
Some with committees and some without.
right. And there was discussion previously of your opinion of having committees of the whole. So I think this would be more of the committee of the whole in spirit, because we have these standardized meetings. We can alternate and have the different committees meeting and have more of an opportunity for public and or board members available. I guess one question, Mr. Kearney, is from an education committee standpoint, how many people are generally at your meeting? I know you had a lot, I think, on the first one, but what about the others?
I would say there's been 4 consistent.
Okay,
And then I think we might have had up to, like, the first meeting, we had about 10 the first time.
Yeah.
But it's averaged about 4.
right.
And I will say,
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I would say another consideration too was administration. Their schedule
Right.
too is that we heard that they were overwhelmed. So I think maybe that was part of the 4 o'clock, is that the administration is there, can give their input instead of calling them back for another meeting at night. That was I think that's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, one idea there would be potentially to have one of the education committee meetings for the feedback from the staff, so that they can prepare and get ready to talk about certain things with regard to what the agenda is. That might be an option if it was in fact later than 4 o'clock, but I'm not particularly opposed to 4 o'clock. I think 2 o'clock is probably a problematic one for many of the board members. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think a majority are at work and have other things happening. So I would just say, I would propose the Mondays with alternating committee schedules, except for the Tuesdays, so that we avoid the IU and we also avoid the LCTI meeting. I would say too, when we talk about the amount of time, Mr. Boyer, regarding the planning of meetings at LCTI and CLIU, it's a once a month meeting. And we have that very well planned out for that meeting in the month. So to, I think, be able to have decisions made on that particular night is possible. However, I think, we could have what Dr. Mann suggested and, have the voting situations twice a month if we really needed them. So I think there's some latitude, and I think this concept here is considering many of the stakeholders and, be efficient in the administration's time. I think that's another one. We have staff, or the administrative staff, I should say, working many hours and have other activities as well that take place at night with attending student events and things like that. So I think there are some conflicts there without having the fixed schedule, and that may be helpful to them as well, instead of having them in multiple nights, if you will, right? Having them on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Mondays, that may be helpful to them because they're a critical part of that process, I would say. So that's my input.
All right, good. My mic is not working. Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. Good discussion. A lot of good feedback that we can take into consideration. I think we need to, we'll meet and come up with a schedule between the committee chairs, including this feedback and also the schedules of the individuals who serve on those committees. And I think we have good feedback on what we'd like to see going to that June 24th meeting. And we'll be in touch about scheduling that with the committee chairs and the rest of the committee members. That sounds good. This has been a great discussion with great feedback.
And I
Thank
think
you.
even to Mr. Mon's point. No, not.
It's probably the lapel.
There we are.
Take it off the lapel, Mike. I think it's, yeah, there you go.
And for example, we may just be able to.
We can't, they can't.
There it is.
Everyone else should turn those off. Everybody else, mute your mics. Your mic if you're not talking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I turned
Well, I'll just speak loudly and say that maybe part of the solution is to say, for instance, if Ed committee wants.
They
to-
can't
I'll
hear
speak
you.
loud. People
They can't.
If the Ed committee wanted to meet at 4:00 on a particular day, and if another committee wanted to meet at 6 on that same day, that might be of value. I mean, so I think there's many
Okay.
ways to come to some workaround to some of this.
For those in the audience, Dr. Mann suggested that perhaps committees could meet at 4:00 in the day and then another committee could meet at 6. Another great idea.
Perfect. So seems to be. That concludes my report.
Okay, fantastic. I did have, for the superintendent update and report, I did have one question. Yeah, do you have a cell phone in your pocket, Mike? You know what? Now it's just both of us. Oh, is yours on? Dr. Mann, one of the questions I had was related to, I believe we did as a board mention that we were going to have an agenda item to discuss, like arts and theater, and that from the last, and it's not on this agenda, but we can discuss it because it was a point of visitor comment. So, hold on.
I would like to.
Sure, you're next.
You're
next. One moment. So I would just ask, at what point in the agenda tonight can we speak about that item? Be it under superintendent report, as sometimes we reserve when comment comes up, or under what point in the agenda will we be speaking about that? Other business?
Emily, you're the president.
I would like to speak to that, Ms. Gaiman.
You would like to
As
speak to the fact that
yes.
the board asked this be on the agenda? and
Yes,
it
I
is
would.
not? Okay, can the audience hear Ms. Reinhardt?
Can you hear me?
Perfect, they can hear you.
Okay, it's my understanding, Ms. Gaiman, that the president sets the agenda for the board meetings. My question
That-
to you
mhm,
is
yes.
why isn't the music program on the agenda today?
That is my understanding as well. However, the working relationship that Dr. Mann and I have is that I receive the agenda at the same time the rest of the board receives it to view for the first time. So if your
So you
recommendation.
received the agenda last week,
Friday?
Friday?
I
You received a preview agenda. Did you call Dr. Mann and ask him to add this to the agenda, the music program? Well, then I don't think it's a problem for the superintendent to answer. I think it's a question you need to answer as president.
Great, then my answer is that we're going to discuss it right now. That's my answer. So
Yeah, no, I would like to discuss it today. I was actually going to bring it up. We probably should bring it up under new business.
So
But I have
we-
that same question. I mean, these,
The board
we have parents and students who are speaking very eloquently and bringing up some excellent points. This really should have been an agenda item.
The board directed
really
the
should have been an agenda item.
superintendent to put it on this agenda, and it is not here.
So you directed Dr. Mann to put it on the agenda and it's not.
Mr. Boyer asked, and the rest of the board weighed in, and we had a discussion that would be on there. I am not in the habit of like checking for those mistakes, but when the audience, because I am not in the habit of building this agenda with our superintendent, something I would love to do, but it has not happened.
So you gave no feedback directly to Dr. Mann as the president to say, look, I would like to see this on the agenda.
Dr. Mann, I get the agenda the same time as the rest of the board. And in that email, it says, here's a preview of the agenda. It will be made public in 1 hour. So if I am working and I do not have time to get to him within that 1 hour, it has gone public. So that is something that we can discuss going forward. I would love to have that. I think that's a great idea. I think the president and the vice president's officers, it's a great opportunity for us to review and prioritize with the superintendent, but I'm not going to wait.
Absolutely, we should give that feedback.
I'm sorry?
We should absolutely give that feedback.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chris. I agree. I absolutely
We agree on
agree.
one thing.
Thank you. I concur. So right now, I am hearing that unanimously, we would like to discuss the arts, student activities, STEM and STEAM opportunities in our district. So let's discuss. Would anyone like to go first?
Yes, I would.
Can the audience hear Ms. Reinhardt?
Okay,
There, thumbs up. They can hear you now.
I would like to see an addendum to the budget or a revision to the preliminary budget to include the proposal for funding that typically is provided to the Music Parents Association, which is, from my understanding, a 501c3 that's independent of the school district. Thank you, parents and students.
Okay. Actually, I'd like to dovetail upon that. I think some of the discussion points tonight that have been discussed previously are that as far as budget changes, I would like to propose and suggest the following changes to the preliminary budget in anticipation of the June 24th vote on the final budget. I would like to propose, instead of $12,000 for the high school theater budget, that it be changed to $25,000. I would like to propose that an additional $2,500 be added to what is currently the music department budget for Liberty Well. I would like to propose that $2,500 be added to the current music department budget in addition to what is currently listed for Hopewell. For example, those funds could be used. Currently, those buildings do not have enough instruments, ukuleles, and xylophones for every student in the class to utilize an instrument during music class. When we purchased those instruments, class sizes were smaller. Now that they are larger, I think it makes sense to purchase instruments. That's one example of how those funds could be used. I would like to propose an additional $5,000 be added to the music department budget for the JPLIS. I would like to propose that additional $5,000 be added to the music department budget for the middle school. And I would like to reinforce and second Ms. Reinhardt's proposal that the additional monies be added to the high school music department in proportion to cover those co-curricular expenses currently being paid for by Southern Lehigh music parents, including but not limited to sheet music, uniform purchase, repair, cleaning, instrument repair, instrument purchase, etc. That is what I would propose. Additionally, I don't have a figure for the debate team for next year. I understand that you are in the hole because you're so performing beyond even your own standards, which are mightily high. So I would propose that not for next year's budget, but as Dr. Mann said, if monies are needed, we are in the business of providing them. I would like to, this board to direct and give the administration our blessing to cover your $4,500 deficit for this year out of our current budget surplus that we are currently discussing how to spend. And whatever you foresee that delta to be between what you are currently provided and what you anticipate needing for next year, I would encourage the administration to reach out, or you yourselves have our email addresses to let us know what you think that is for next year. And mind you, this is next year only. Like we're not going to need to purchase ukuleles next year. So this is a one-time adjustment totaling maybe $20,000. That's what all the things I just listed. So that's my proposal. And I don't intend to vote yes to a budget that doesn't at least include those bare minimum. Sorry, I forgot one thing. The budget surplus for the debate team with the $4,500. I would like to propose that in our current budget surplus before the June 30 close, we look into purchasing those 20 or 25 mic packs that are being requested. Now I'm done. Thanks.
Madam President.
Was that a motion, Emily? Or is
No,
that- these
because
are
we
pro-
can't
we're
vote on
just-
it tonight.
Right.
Well, apparently it's catching. No, it is, I'm saying those adjustments to the line items in the preliminary budget are what I would like to see going into, and I know, Mr. Pepe, funds can be adjusted and you make do and you shift
No, I
as
just want
necessary.
clarification to make sure I get the right numbers here.
And I'm
Because
happy
if
to
this-
put it in email, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, because if this is the will of the board, then I'm going to do that, and I need to do that in order to make all the numbers work out for the 24th. So what I just heard was $2,500 music department.
They can't hear you. Maybe it's not on.
Is that a little better?
Yes.
Okay, so what I just heard was $2,500 music department Liberty Bell, $2,500 music department Hopewell, $5,000 JPLIS music.
These are all
5,000
increases.
Right?
Right, okay.
And 5,000 middle school music. You did not talk about debate. It sounds like we're really talking about $5,000. That's the number that really makes sense in the debate. Am I adjusting that as well? Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then the one where it's a little fuzzy is what are you doing with the high school music and theater?
High school theater, the $12,000 line item changes to $25,000. This is my suggestion. This is what I'd like to see.
That's what I have.
Okay.
Okay.
And then as far as the high school music, I don't know what music parents, we happen to have a music parent president in the audience right now. I do not know what they have spent on those items, those co-curricular types items like sheet music, uniform purchase and repair, instrument purchase and repair at a high school level. So I don't have that. Whatever, I know there have been discussions and spreadsheets,
But as far
whatever that,
as-
and I'm getting nods, like whatever that is that's currently being covered by music parents.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of what that is, or if you had already mentioned that dry cleaning was going to be paid for, what element of that is or isn't.
Yeah, the dry cleaning was already agreed to, that was going to be covered moving forward. As far as order of magnitude, based on where you are with the elementaries, the IS in the middle, then you would probably want to raise that one to 7,500.
7,500?
7,500 would be in line.
I don't have a sense of if that's going to cover what music parents covers. I mean, it sounds
Based on.
based on an
Yeah.
order of magnitude. However, I will
Emily, the
say
only thing-
that
so-
those other schools.
There was a difference of 48,000 that was discussed. So the discussion.
Explain how there's a discussion, no difference of 48,000 from a
Well-
budgetary bottom line.
What we were told this evening was the total cost to put on both the spring and the fall was $60,000. The total cost was $60,000, and the budget currently is $12,000. Is that
What?
correct? That's correct, right? Yeah.
No,
I'm
no,
correcting-
I mean,
yeah, that's
Dr. Wayat's
okay.
addressing the audience. Go ahead, audience,
That's
address
okay.
Dr. Wayak.
No, we're talking high school now.
High school only, what does music parents provide? And if you don't have that number, you weren't expected to.
That's already going to be covered. That no longer needs to be in your.
Okay. So, Mr. Pepe, it sounds like your increase estimate was spot on. The 7,500 will cover it for the high school. Thank you. Great job, Mr. Pepe. Thanks. Ought to know you know that inside and out already.
Mrs. Gaiman?
Yes, Mr. Carney.
So between what you've talked about and what MJ brought up as a suggestion, would that also cover the assistant directors, the music director? Would that be covered somehow?
Oh, no, I totally forgot about that. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering about.
No, you're right. You're right.
Or if there's information that I'm missing as far as the assistant director, the music director, those types of things that were also brought up, the positions.
It is my understanding that those are covered by the ancillary, I don't know if it's ancillary or auxiliary schedule that has yet to be brought before the board. So those are included in that whenever that comes up for a board vote. But yes, are you proposing, I would support your proposal that those stipended positions also be included in the upcoming
Yeah, to
budget.
answer your questions, no. The way she just broke down was mostly supplies and material budgets, not the, I think it was assistant drama, assistant musical director, and pit orchestra.
Correct.
You're probably talking about 2, 4, 6, about $7,000 total in stipends.
Yeah, 7 to 9, somewhere in there, yeah. So those could be added, yes. So are you suggesting, Mr. Carney, that those are added to the ancillary schedule when it's brought before us and budgeted for accordingly?
I'd definitely like it considered, yes.
Yes, okay, good. Mr. Pepe, you're nodding, you're clear on that, thank you.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, that won't change with the budget. That'll change, as you said, with the other agreement.
Okay, with the other agreement that will, all right, great. Someone, I think Ms. Reinhardt's wanted to speak, but you can't be heard. It's not working.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Can you hear me now? That works. Okay, I guess where I'm going with this, just to be really clear, because I don't. Now this one's working.
I think it's just when you turn it on.
Okay, just to be clear, I really think we need to move forward without relying on independent 501c3, not-for-profits, charitable institutions, and development to fund the district operations for music in any way. I appreciate what the Music Parents Association does. I think it should be supplemental, and it's up to them and their mission and their planning year to year, their goals and objectives, which can change over time, just like ours, to really figure out how they're going to support the public music system. But I think we really need to move forward with a separation. Not that planning isn't collaborative, but the funding should be secure by the district and taxpayers. That was my only point.
Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. Well, thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. Totally agree. You and I are completely on the same page with that one. We are indeed. The arts unite, don't they, MJ? Anyone else?
I just, yeah.
Mr. Mont.
Is this working?
I don't know. Is this a working audience?
Is this working?
Kinda.
Yes.
There you
it's
go.
Working. I'm not going to swallow this. As it stands right now, the way I have these numbers from operations is that there is $45,000 of monies in the budget for these programs. Now, that does not include the assistants that were being discussed, as far as I know it, from what I've understood. So you've got, and that includes things such as the equipment budget, the supplies and material budget, the professional services budget, the music director in a different general ledger account, the stipends, okay, for 23-24 were like $6,000. and the licensing fee for the musical, and then the general fund for theater on top of that ends up being about $45,000. Now, please correct me if I'm mistaken. I just want to make sure we have this abundantly clear amongst everybody listening. Is that correct? Mr. Pepe, maybe you could.
You're adding, so Steve, just to be clear, you're adding
This is from everything everybody got on this board.
Yeah.
Everybody on this board got this.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're adding together the
different general
personnel
ledger accounts.
stipends
Yeah.
along with the budget for like
can we hear
lumber
from the
and
director
rights.
of
That's what
finance?
that 45,000 is.
Initially in these meetings, folks were saying that there were no stipends. So that's why.
No.
That's part of it,
No,
right?
they were not saying there were no stipends.
I recall.
You mean the audience?
Yeah, in
No,
some of the comments.
No, the audience was not saying that. The audience was saying that currently they have, for example, a director stipend for the fall play and a director stipend for the spring play.
Not the assistants.
But they do not have assistants. So that $45,000 figure you're talking about would include, say, the $25,000 budget that they're asking for that I was suggesting we put in addition to the currently existing stipends. You were lumping those all together.
I put the existing stipend in there because
Yes.
we're talking about the whole enchilada
Yes.
of the theater program. That it's not $11,000 or 12 or 15. It was $45,000. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that. Because when you go through the general ledger accounts, is what I would call them, the different accounts within the budgets, they're there historically, there, and they've been there. There is, I think, one item that maybe was stopped. I know the dry cleaning was stopped. That was problematic to begin with, but $45,000. So I just want to make sure everybody understands $45,000 for all these items that are normally there. I'm not saying that's too much or too little. I just want to set the record straight. And everybody on this board got this information.
Yeah.
Right?
So what I'm saying is that money more than $12,000, absolutely more than $12,000 has been spent on theater annually. But we were asking, what my request was, is to put 25 instead of 12 on that line. And yes, if you add up all those stipend positions for fall and for spring, I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, they would probably total, I don't have it in front of me. However, the positions that are being asked for are not currently included.
Okay, so that's that part. Now, we talk
Stephen, can I
about,
just ask a question real quick?
we talk about the agenda. I'm
I
sorry.
just have a quick, so that's 60,000 that a gentleman spoke about earlier.
Where are you getting 60,000?
Well,
He said 1,000. Are you talking about Mr. D'Amico?
I'm listening. The total cost was $60,000.
Dr. Wayak is addressing you.
Concessions.
Sure.
So you can say, well, I see a number of 40, but you have to be realistic. That number could literally be 10, it could be 5, right? There's a budget, and we are funding everything else. Sometimes out of our pocket, sometimes with the ticket sales, which you can't count on. Now, here's the thing I don't know. I don't know what happens with ticket sales for football, and maybe it gets put back in the fund. To be frank, we'd be fine with that because the reality is we're trying to fund it without worrying about, we hope we have people show up. So when you see a number and you say 40, please know, 40 includes people paying at the door and coming in and people buying concessions. And who pays for the concessions that are sold? We do out of our pocket without reimbursement. So this is not the way other things work. So
I think we're starting to understand the variable revenue. So the 60,000 though is the total cost. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. The total cost for 2 shows is 60,000.
And we hope we get the money in and figure out how to make it work without microphones. So that kind of hopefully gives you some, I'm sorry, now hopefully that gives you some idea.
Okay, so Dr. Wea, the 60,000 you're talking about, we just heard is they cost to put on a
The
show.
total cost,
Hopefully
the total
supplemented
cost-
by ticket sales,
correct.
which this year totaled about 33 or 35,000.
So there's fixed and variable revenue, obviously.
Good, on the same page.
Mr. Pepe, has the theater program in any of the years ever fallen short, or if it has it not been reimbursed? Has there ever been an issue like that in any of the years that you know of?
No, I
Where we're
actually went back and looked at 10
Okay.
years. Over the 10 years, it's actually been funded the most in the last 3. It was increased in 22, 23, then it was slightly down in, or 21, 22 went up, slightly down, 22, 23, back up in the current year. I think what we're talking about here is opportunity cost. So when you look at how the overall program is funded, I think what I'm hearing is with additional commitment from the board, that allows the group to utilize the funds they have in the student activity account on other things other
Right.
than the
Yeah.
rights to the music and whatnot. But the program itself is solvent. And in the current year, there was actually a $6,000 deficit as far as we covered more of the program. And when I looked into it, it was because supplies were charged off to the high school main office account, and because they were able to get better pricing online through the account, and I rectified that. So as I said, at this point, you don't want to mix and match everything because you're talking about music budgets, just like, the first time debate came up was tonight, okay? So in total, you're talking about 39,500. What I'm going to do is I will adjust the budget where it still comes out the same amount overall, so I don't have to mess with the millage rate or the homestead rebate and all that. And what I'm going to do is I'll take down the contribution to capital reserve, equal amount.
The other thing I'd like to suggest to this board is that we review these legacy issues that are happening with regards to some of these programs with respect to, for example, no dry cleaning for the marching band. I can't believe that, but it's there from a legacy standpoint. So we need to go through these things and set standards so that we don't have this confusion anymore with the other programs. And that's one thing that's going to take a little bit of time, but we've got to work through that. And I think the intention, correct me if I'm wrong from the budgeting standpoint, was to tackle this at next year's budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's part of the process.
Right.
The challenge here is the discussion came to the board after the input process, because everything
Right.
that was put before us for budgeting these particular programs is what was approved.
The problem
Nothing was
here is that
cut
we're
in the discussion.
unwinding things that were done in a legacy standpoint for years.
No, wait, hold on.
Yes,
I'm gonna
they
object
are.
to that. Yes, the dry cleaning, sure. However, what we're facing overall, instead of, I don't know, looking backwards, I want to look forward. What we're facing overall is an issue where the dry cleaning came to our attention, frankly, through Mr. Pepe, who gave a very detailed report saying, hey, we're paying for photo dry cleaning, it costs that much. And the community went, I'm sorry, what? That's how that happened. But the problem we're facing is we don't have a systemic way to identify these gaps. And Steve, I agree with you. We need to come up with a systemic way to identify these gaps, because right now we're relying on the music pairing president coming and saying, did you know we pay for sheet music and dry cleaning? So I agree with you. And so we need to address that issue. I
No,
think the
there is
other
There is
thing,
a process for that, though,
Okay.
Madam President, and
Good.
that's through the budget development process.
through the Velvet.
That has to
happens
go
through the buildings, correct?
Through the buildings, to the building principals.
Right.
So when they come forward with their budget, they've already had those meetings, they've already had those conversations. That would have been a lot more helpful to iron out any differences rather than post-budget meetings with the building principals. Because now, as you're going from fall to winter, already into spring, we're set to launch and ready to roll out the overall budget, which is a great budget, okay?
Yeah.
So I think this action will certainly satisfy what has been brought forward at the last couple of meetings. We're able to do it. And I don't see that there was any other issues other than, that particular program.
Well, I would suggest that we review this so that in anticipation of next year with budgeting, that we don't have other things crawling out of the woodwork with respect to the budgeting process for particular clubs, sports, events, all of those things and the like, to make sure that we get this cleaned up. That's, I think, the point. I think everybody from the administration standpoint agrees with that. It was intended to happen, right, next year from what was discussed.
Correct.
So that's that. Now, as far as the agenda goes, we all got the agenda on Friday. I just respectfully, I find it hard to believe that that discussion didn't take place or it wasn't reviewed by the board president and the superintendent. I don't know. Maybe when I walked out to the restroom, there was an explanation, but I'm curious as to how that happened, and I would recommend in the future we ensure that we have that synergy. We've got to start working as a team here, okay?
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And the frustration level, okay, from me personally, I've sat on boards, I'm on boards, I've been in these things, I don't know how long. I've never seen this sort of tension. So we have to get to a point where we have open discussions and we have teamwork. And that's why I agree with having these committees on a standardized schedule so that we can all have the input and the synergy so that when we come out here, we're not going back and forth with these things. It's not the way the board should be conducted. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it, but I think we need to fix it.
I agree,
It's a
Steve.
problem.
I agree, Steve.
I dread this board meeting. I enjoy the LCTI board meetings because there's teamwork, okay? So we need better communication and understand what is going on in the board. Frankly, I haven't heard anything. I don't hear anything about what's going on in these discussions. Ergo, the reason I was at the technology meeting. Ergo, the reason why I'm going to other committee meetings so that I can understand what's happening on a more detailed level, unfortunately. Now, maybe I'm perceiving this incorrectly, but that's my take on it so far, and I feel as if we need to do better at working together. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, Steve, all board members having access to all the same information instead of a one-off is critically important to our working together as a team. So all having access to the same information is really important. And I have to say, I appreciate you spending the time and coming out to committee meetings. All right.
Okay, if I could maybe address a couple issues with respect to the budgeting aspect of this, right? First, I want to begin by agreeing with Mrs. Reinhardt and everyone on this committee that to the extent that parents are selling things in the concession stand and working hard to raise funds, those funds should be going to things like taking kids to Broadway on a Saturday for a play or something like that, right?
Yep.
So there's no. On that, there really is no. And as we've looked over time.
Nothing.
Came off. Testing, maybe.
Hey,
All right.
let's try this.
That's good.
And so the district must, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, must be able to fund the play, right? And we have to fund it in a way that's respectful to the talents of our students. Now, with respect to the $25,000, I do want to ask about ticket sales, okay? Because while we're not suggesting we should be taking anything from the concession stand or the many other things that go on, I do ask the board if you intend for the ticket sales to remain at the discretion of the play director. How does that work? Because it may be that if the ticket sales come to the district, and I would say there's a distinction between the work the parents do in selling in the concession stand and the revenue from ticket sales. I would ask is the $25,000 offset by the ticket revenue? Or are we adding from 12 to 25 plus the additional ticket revenue, which is in the tens of thousands?
Currently, I think this is on, Dr. Mann, currently, all of the ticket sale money gets turned into the high school office.
Let's talk about in the future.
So
No, it's put into an account that is at the discretion of the play to spend, which is when Mr. Pepe's report, where there's a very substantial balance in that account.
But
So that money does not accrue to the general fund. That is carried over in.
No,
the play
that stays in Fund 20
Correct.
under the Student Activities Musical account, which as of today is down to $29,871. And that's because they cleared out expenditures. I believe they had, let's see, they had expenditures this month of $11,349. So they were probably catching up with all the expense from the actual production.
Right. And what I will also say is that the way this has been just accounted for, literally accounted for, in this fund and that fund, right? It's an awkward thing, all right? But in no way are we suggesting that if we have a bad ticket sale year, then all of a sudden we have to roll back on a particular aspect. I mean, that's like saying, well, if in a year our real estate transfer tax is down, that means like, are we not going to pay our teachers? Like, that's not the case, right? Because ultimately, if we were to incur like this has happened to me in the past, if we come to March and we see that we really are not going to break even for the year, we may stop funding across the board because of an emergency. But in no way does a lack of ticket sales mean that we're not going to be able to meet a need because all the ticket sales were down. We're not going to be able to put on this aspect of the play. That is the perception, and perhaps it's a valid perception that was drawn, but it's not how the process works, right? It was set up to have a student activity account that took this money in and a money from the general fund. And that would not be my first choice as to how to do it, but that was something that had just been here and how it has worked. So, and then the other point I wish to make, right, is that I know that currently our play director and our high school principal have been engaged in some really good conversations about staffing for next year. I think that they actually have a meeting set for the 20th of June. I'm not totally sure, if memory serves, if the request for staffing from the play director to the principal aligns with what is being said here. It may or may not, but it may not fully reflect. I think there may be some additional things that the play director may be looking for with respect to conductors and musicians and choreographers and a whole bunch of other things. And so I would say that those conversations are ongoing, and perhaps if this is what the board wants to do, we could say, well, that's what it is. We won't have those conversations, but that leads to my final point, right? In that we have very legitimate people coming tonight making very legitimate claims for a need, right? In an organization, believe it or not, that is spending more than it has like historically ever. And that's great, right? The accounting is all messed up, but yes, all right? And then we have amazing speech people, right, coming in saying, hey, can we help us out in this respect? And I will tell you, right, that throughout this district, with many of our student activities, people are volunteering for free. Teachers, staff members, moderators, all of them, right? And I say this not to not get people what they want or to go against the will of the board at all. It's easy. This makes it easy for us, right? But it may not make it easy for the board, right? Because next month, when the person who is moderating this student activity comes in and has been volunteering for free for a long time, says, hey, look, I need this. And there will be a long line of them external to the budget process. I think the board is inviting that, and that may be what the board wishes, but it should just be aware that that will be coming, and I think in a large volume, because this process is external to what has been established as a budgeting process. If this is what the board wishes to do, by all means, we support it. But I do offer that word of caution based upon hard-earned experience in other places on this topic. So I thank you, Mrs. Gaiman. That concludes my remarks, and I certainly would be willing to take any questions, happy to take questions or further discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Mann.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, Ms. King.
So, and the communication we got from Mr. Pepe on May 14th and 17th, he kind of detailed what was going on with the theater program. And at the time, he said that was appropriately funded. Nobody asked any questions. Nobody said anything after that. So is that appropriately funded in respect to how football is appropriately funded and baseball is appropriately funded? And if we give the theater more money, will football come now and say, well, we don't want all of our, fundraising money to go to this. We'd prefer it to go to something else. Or I'm just concerned, like Dr. Mann said, that everyone's going to be coming. It's going to be inequitable funding. And then my second point is, does the theater kids, do they pay the $50 pay to play fee?
Yeah, they do.
They do. Okay. So I didn't know that. So I guess my only question is the same that's Dr. Mann said. Will the money, so if we fund this to their level of appropriateness and there's extra money from fundraising or ticket sales, can that then come back to the district?
Yeah, I think choice of words is important. I did not say appropriately. I said adequately funded in both the current year and next year's budget. And when I say adequately funded, I'm looking at it from an auditing perspective, having done a deep dive into all of the funding sources. Without the student activity source, they would not be able to run the program. Without our support, they would not be able to run the program. With the two combined, they're able to run the program. Now, as I said, opportunity cost, you're certainly providing an opportunity for them to utilize the funds in the student activity portion of the musical account on other expenditures. And I think that's what Dr. Mann said, if they wanted to take a trip to Broadway or something, rather than having to utilize that money to fund the basic elements of running the program. And as far as whether or not they came up short in any given year, the board has shown and demonstrated that we would step in and fund the program as far as necessary funding to make sure the program goes on.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the current year, I think it was $6,000 over, as I said, in the supplies, which we did fund prior to digging in to do the report. Once I dug in to do the analysis, that's when I realized that they were basically sitting with the $6,000 in the student activity account that needed to be transferred to the general fund to make the general fund account whole. Had we not looked into that, it would have finished the year out in a deficit in the general fund, and they would have finished the year out with that additional $6,000 in their account.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Pepe.
Do you have something else, Ms. King?
Yeah, I guess I have one more question. So now you're saying that if they feel they're inappropriately funded, so if they get the funding they want, so before that, you would just give them whatever they were over, whatever they needed, we would say, he said that we would make sure that they were whole.
No, they had a budget of $10,000 in supply line item. If they ended up expending $13,000 through the supply line, then we would, talk to the building principal to find out what are the expenditures. Are they, appropriate? Yes, they're real expenditures. Okay, then that particular fund or that particular account line item would show up negative. Just like we could have other line items that show up positive overall at the end of the year, we have not closed out in a deficit, which had been the case in the past. We're actually showing a nice, fund balance at the end that we've been putting into the capital reserve for future facility-related needs, okay? So it's not necessarily a matter of us making the decision at that time, is this appropriate, is this not appropriate? I think what Dr. Mann was saying, if for some reason, if they did not have adequate funds available in the student activity portion from prior year ticket sales, and they still needed to put a production on, that would be a different conversation, and we would certainly come, back to the board and say, hey, look, we need to do a transfer of, say, $10,000 to $20,000 to ensure that they're able to operate. but that's something your superintendent would bring to the board on an as-needed basis, and that has not happened at this point.
It does raise the question, right? It raises the question as to where does the ticket sales go now under this new arrangement?
Can't hear you. The question was, isn't it offsetting revenue?
Aren't ticket sales offsetting revenue?
The ticket sales, if we were to avoid the concerns that are being raised, the ticket sales would go to the general fund to offset the money that is being budgeted. That's not how it happens now. And that is exactly my question, Mrs. Reinhardt. Does the money from the ticket sales now go to offset the cost of the $25,000 budget that the play has?
I don't understand how
Yes.
increasing a budget line item from $12,000, because Mr. Pepe and you, Dr. Mayhem, explained in the past that even though $12,000 is the figure listed on that line, more is paid for the theater program. And the point that is being made here tonight is that if you are going to expend funds for the theater program beyond $12,000, and if you acknowledge that $12,000 isn't enough, then why not put those funds on the line so that, I believe someone made the example of what your base salary is and what your bonus is. Why not put those funds on the line so that the theater program doesn't feel that it has to beg every year for what we all acknowledge are its base needs? So I don't understand how simply listing the number that perhaps does not perfectly reflect the adequate funding of that program, but comes closer to approximating the adequate funding of that program, I don't see how that creates a conflict of now where do ticket sales go? Why don't we just do it as we've done in the past? Like I don't understand.
Right, okay, and let me try, and Mr. Pepe could certainly assist me. But
Yes,
right
by
now,
all means.
But right now, when the $12,000 is up, money is drawn from a separate account that includes the ticket sales. And so the ticket revenue sales goes to augment the $12,000 budget.
Mhm.
Now, if we, and the 12,000 does not come from the general fund, it comes from the general fund. If now from the general fund, we go from $12,000 to $25,000, does the ticket money that would otherwise cover the difference between 12 and 25 come to the general fund to offset that expense?
I think I would leave it in the hands of you and Mr. Pepe to figure that out. But ultimately, I also would say that I don't think the success of the theater program as measured by ticket sales should fund the needs of that program any more or any less than the success of a football team should determine the funding of said football team. Whether they go to states or not should not. So I guess I would say that however you need to adequately fund a program, do so and continue to do so without interruption, but it's ultimately a student activity fund, and the student activity fund is shared by not just theater, but other student activities throughout the high school, and ultimately is at the discretion of the principal through that funding. So however you are currently funding theater to make it adequately funded, I don't see why you wouldn't continue to do so.
Because it's not a matter of adequately funding, it's a matter of what is the board asking? The question is, what is the board asking us to do? Is the board asking us to say, have a $25,000 budget plus the ticket revenue, or is it saying a $25,000 budget? And that's the question, because currently the $12,000 budget plus the ticket revenue, which now we have a surplus in the account of about $30,000, funds the operations. And what we're asking is, are we saying $25,000 plus the other 10, 11, 12, whatever it happens to be that year goes to the budget? Or are we saying it's a $25,000 budget plus the cost of the things? Because that is what that's the question that is being raised, and we would need a point of clarification on that issue.
Okay, I'm sure that's something we can work out between now and the June 24th vote, because I think I need a little more information to adequately understand to inform my decision. I'm not ready to weigh in on that tonight.
All the information's right in front of us, Ms. Gaiman. We need to make a decision. And
No, we
give-
can't make a
Yeah,
decision tonight by
no.
definition. We're making a decision on the 24th. I'm sure we can
Yeah,
iron
but-
this out.
But just so you realize, for my purpose, we need to make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
Because I need to go and make whatever adjustments, and it's very simple. The way you put it forward, President Gaiman, that $12,000 would simply relieve pressure on the expenses that are currently covered by the theater group in the student activity account.
Yes,
That's all that would happen.
yes.
The ticket sales stay there
Yes.
as current practice or past practice.
So
What
we're
Dr.
basically
Mahan is
increasing by
saying is,
13,000.
at this point, are you considering to take the ticket sales into the general fund? And if you do that, then you're kind of undercutting the whole point of adding
Oh.
additional.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe.
Money.
I thank you for, I was not clear on that. Yes, in that case, Mr. Pepe's understanding is correct. The ticket sales would continue. There would be no change, Dr. May, and I apologize. I was not understanding that until Mr. Pepe explained it. Mr. Pepe is correct. That's what I was proposing.
And then I would just say, in so doing, we go back to the original concern that was raised in that the budget for the play is contingent upon ticket sales. And just so we're aware that problem then does resurface.
And
It's less of a problem, for sure. It is less of a problem for sure because there's more underlying funding, but you are still dependent upon the overall spend for the play to be associated with a variable account, which is the ticket sales and the other stuff. That's just true.
No, I think the other thing that the, administration, in particular myself in my office and the auditor, because the auditor audits all of the student activity accounts, we'll keep an eye on the balance. And if any particular group starts to accumulate too much balance, then the concern there becomes, are they not overfunded and why, what are we doing with all this balance? Okay. And that can be, relooked at as we go into the subsequent years.
So it goes both ways with underfunding and
Yeah, and all
overfunding.
the expenses out of there are reviewed by the building administrator in each building. Okay, we just happen to be talking about the high school, so it's not like any particular group can just, spend money on whatever they feel like without any accountability. All of that goes through, actually, Suzanne Lang in the main office keeps very good accounting, and we have the ability to review that, and it's all audited.
Thanks.
Could I suggest that we let's get through this year's budgeting and the agreement. And then I think next year, that's where some of this gets cleaned up from a standpoint of people understanding and the accounts and where the things are. But for this particular budget series, I think we need to move on with it in one way or another. Am I mistaken? Okay. Does everybody agree with that? Right?
I
Do what
mean,
we need to do this year, and then we're evaluating all this stuff next year anyway.
oh yeah, you're not discounting.
Earlier in the
but-
process
So you're
and-
saying you agree with the suggestions that have been made about budget line item changes, and then next year, absolutely, we start from the beginning, as Mr.
Yeah,
Pepe said. and-
I'm not in particular favor of making the sausage like this for a budget. That's not generally how it's done, line by line. I mean, we'll be here for eternity. I'll be a skeleton by the time we get done through it, all of this, but.
Agree. Agree.
Okay, so it's got to be done the proper way. I mean, we're in a special case right now. I would say, let's decide and move on.
So the administration needs direction when it prepares the final budget for the June 24th meeting. I made those, so does the majority of the board support those things that Mr. Pepe just listed? And yes, I'm seeing yeses, the majority of the board supports. Yep, we're good. Okay, Mr. Mond? Yep.
Yep.
All right. Great. Moving on? All right, thank you. Dr. Mann, does that conclude your? Okay, certainly. Moving on to item 4, curriculum, student and staff services. We have items 4A and B. A is the request for a proposal for an RFP of a comprehensive feasibility study for full-day K. And item B, if no one objects, I will take these together, is the Pennsylvania School-Based Access Program, Local Education
local education agency agreement to participate in fiscal year 24-25. Do I have a motion? Any
moved.
objective if I take those together?
I make a motion for, to approve 4A and B.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
My chopped liver here? I'm pretty sure.
I'm sorry, she's mic'd next to me and Dr. Wack is down there. I apologize. We'll catch you on the next one, Dr. Wack. Any questions or comments on these two items?
Comment, I just want to thank Dr. Trinkle and everybody involved and the folks up front there that were faithful to coming to the meetings. It's all a long process, still have a long way to go, but this is a step. So thank you for 4A.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 5, technology, middle school Chromebooks. Actually, this was, can y'all still hear me? I hear myself differently. This was an item that was discussed at the past 2 technology committee meetings. Actually, before we jump to this, I'm just going to turn it over. Ms. Torba, would you like to give your committee report just on this item right now, just as Mr. Kearney did on education items that we looked at before? Would you like to give a brief committee report on this item?
Sure.
Before
Thank
we
you, Ms.
take a
Gaiman.
motion?
Yeah, before we vote on this motion, I'd just like to provide some background and details that have led to the proposal of introducing Chromebooks in 7th grade. So currently in the district, we have Apple devices and Chromebooks. So students in grades K through 3 and students 7 through 12 use an Apple device, and students in grades 4, 5, 6 use Chromebooks. All of our teachers use Apple devices and most of our staff. Just to give you some background, our student devices 7 through 12, the maintenance agreement, Apple Care, if you will, expired this past April of 24. And our teachers expired a year ago with their maintenance agreement. Again, just giving you background and details. The technology committee, we became aware of the expired maintenance for those 7 through 12 Apple devices in April, this past April. A few of us attended a meeting between administration and Apple representative where we became aware the maintenance agreement expired. So then in our May meeting, our monthly technology committee meeting in May, we did review administration's recommendation to introduce Chromebooks in 7th grade to maybe potentially help the offset of potential expenses for Apple repairs coming in the future. Also in May, the committee reviewed recommendation to refresh our staff devices. And in our board meeting in May, the committee, we proposed to proceed with the refresh of those staff devices, but at the time, we did not want to move forward with the Chromebooks for 7th grade. Again, this is just background to give you intel as to where this motion came from. Last week, Technology Committee did meet for our June meeting, and administration reiterated the recommendation to insert Chromebooks into 7th grade. And I really just please note that 7th and 8th grade, currently the students use an Apple device, and our teachers use Apple devices. So when you go Apple to Apple, that allows our teachers to conduct professional practice within classroom management. When you go Apple to Chromebook, teachers would need professional development to be able to conduct professional practice within classroom management. Just again, it's background information that I want to give the board the context of where this motion is coming from. I'm neither for nor against the use of Chromebooks in 7th grade. My concern is the lack of planning, which leads to insufficient preparation for our middle school staff and our support teams. The discussion for our student devices with a 4-year agreement should have happened in the spring of '23. In this current school year, '23-24, we would have been prepared to make decisions on those student devices, which could have occurred during Q1 to give all staff time to make any shifts or pivots necessary. I'm a big advocate for the tools that we use should not dictate our curriculum. They should support and enrich the learning experience. This decision should not be made by one person. This decision should be made collaboratively by a team of educators, specialists, interventionists. Those are who are involved in our students' day-to-day activities. Our primary focus should be on our curriculum and its goals, ensuring that technology supports our educational objectives. The Technology Committee has asked administration to find better ways to align technology with our curriculum. And to achieve this, the Technology Committee has requested administration create a strategic task force, if you will, including staff representatives from each building, to research and investigate how technology can integrate into the classroom, enhancing our learning environment. That task force should be able to develop a technology plan that meets our students' needs and aligns with our curriculum. Giving all that background and insight on our current situation and the lack of a forward-moving plan, I will be voting no to insert Chromebooks into 7th grade. We have no strategy in place and no means to determine whether this technology aligns with our curriculum.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torba. Could I have a motion for item 5A, authorize the purchase of?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Wand was the first, and Dr. Wyrick or Ms. King?
Yep.
Dr. Wyrick
Whoever.
was the second. Any further questions or comments on this item at this time?
Yeah, I have comments.
Yeah.
I was at
Mr.
the
Mon.
meeting the other day, and I did take a lot of notes. First of all, when it comes to utilizing the Chromebooks within the classroom, we have software that currently will work with Chromebooks. Yes, there will be some training, and I would ask the administration, whether it be Dr. Trinker or Dr. Mann, to talk about that a little bit, if you would. The use of Chromebooks rather than the MacBook with respect to interfacing with the teacher to that device rather than the MacBook. That's the first question I have.
Is this on? I'm a little shy about this with this microphone not working.
I think it works when you're not shy, but there you go, we can hear you now.
So there are software opportunities that we currently have. That if you're Apple to Apple, you would use Apple Classroom. And if you're Apple to non-Apple device, in this case Chromebooks, we could utilize Lightspeed, which is our current filtering system, to do that. Yes, there would be some professional development that we would have to integrate into that, but it is currently utilized in this district from a filtering perspective, and I don't want to speak too much outside of the scope of tech.
Right.
And what specs that has, but from my recollection from the tech committee meeting is that we could employ that and it would meet our needs. But it is an option that does exist to us. We already have Lightspeed. We already have access to that function. Is that what you were looking for?
Now, as far as the curriculum goes and the utilization of a tool for the prime strategy of the curriculum, is the Chromebook acceptable and have the utilities or the apps, if you will, to be able to conduct education the same way as it was with the MacBook?
I will answer that question.
Okay, great.
I don't mean to speak speak for Dr. Trinkle, but since there is a discussion of lack of planning, if there is a lack of planning or concerns, I want it to be.
Can't hear you.
Hit that black button.
Okay, now? Okay. I will answer that question. I don't mean to speak for Dr. Trinkle. She's perfectly able to respond to that question, but I want to be responsible for the answer in that, yes, Chromebooks absolutely meet.
Can't hear you out there.
Chromebooks absolutely meet our needs from an educational point of view. Are they different in a different way than a MacBook? They are. Are they different from an iPad? They are. And so different devices have different pluses and minuses, but I am responding and saying that absolutely Chromebooks not only will meet our needs, they are known to meet the needs of many students across the Commonwealth and the United States.
I would just like to follow up on my expression of the lack of planning to insert. Chromebooks are great. Mac is great too. Paper and pencil are amazing as well. To just insert into 7th grade, and we did, and I do appreciate administration having conversations with middle school teachers on how it would affect classroom instruction, whether a student had a Mac or a Chromebook, and they did bring that forth in our committee. It's a short-term decision, and we have no long-term plan, and I'll elaborate on the long-term plan. When we look at technology, it's not going anywhere. And districts who have a plan who marry their technology and curriculum because they do overlap and they do intertwine, how can we enhance that technology and bring that into the classroom? So are there things available out there that would enhance instruction? And it could differentiate instruction as well and could bring other opportunities, even, for example, maybe a child who has an IEP where it's specific to a need. That's where the planning comes in play to understand, is there something Southern Lehigh could be doing to enhance that versus inserting right now, paying that fee. We can cover our repairs on those Macs and create that task force to understand down the road, long term, what can we do to make our education phenomenal, marrying those two.
I have one
So
comment.
I didn't really go deep in that, but I just wanted to clarify.
What is the cost difference between maintaining?
I'm struggling hearing
He's
you.
asking for the cost difference.
My microphone's on just fine.
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
What is the cost difference with going to Chrome for 7th graders? Currently, the 6th graders, my daughter will be a 7th grader next year. She's currently using a Chromebook, so her going to a Chromebook in 7th grade, I'm sure would be fine for her as a student. But I understand, a lot of the teachers utilize Macs, probably even in 6th grade. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I'd like to know that answer. And then, so what's the cost difference between buying 275 new Chromebooks versus keeping the existing MacBooks or buying new MacBooks for the 7th grade class?
Well, I mean, initially the cost different. I understand the cost.
It's not a question for you. I'm sorry. This is a question for administration and for the technology.
You didn't direct it to the
thank you.
administration. I was just going to answer as a committee member, the cost difference between purchasing approximately 275 Chromebooks for 7th grade and not purchasing 275 Chromebooks for 7th grade is obviously the cost, the cost of the Chromebooks. We are not, this is whether or not we are or are not going to purchase them. So the cost difference is the savings of not making a purchase. But I mean, there are opportunity costs
But yeah,
as well.
there's also opportunity costs for, I don't know where they are in their lifespan, and then, looking to transition. So what I'm hearing as a board member is that there seems to be a plan to transition the middle school from MacBooks to Chromebooks. Is that the plan from administration?
Testing. Okay.
There you go.
Yes, okay. As we explored this issue, talking at great lengths, including to one of the top executives in the state of Pennsylvania for instruction employed by Apple, we've learned that even Apple is not pushing MacBooks for student use anymore. So we do not believe, on our own independent review, and this is strongly endorsed by Apple, that MacBooks is an alternative that would work for us. It's not a lot. It's not a lot.
MacBooks
Apple's
are not
even
long-term.
pushing it. Right.
Okay.
Apple's point of view, and it's a good one, right, is that really the future is in iPads, because iPads are mobile. They have devices in place like accelerometers and all kinds of cameras and apps, and they are present in industry that people use in, if you go out and you see them, engineers and retail people and all kinds of, they all use iPads. And iPads, however, to gain that functionality require an awful lot of staff development. Now, we are very comfortable with iPads at our elementary level because there's a different interface with younger children than our older students. So while a case can be made, hey, let's transition over to iPads. Our thought is that we have laid the basis for some really great, exciting work in curriculum development with respect to our language arts. Both at the elementary and the secondary level, we have science standards, new science standards coming up. And our professional development really should focus on supporting those ongoing curricular efforts that Dr. Trinkle has led so well. And given the sparsity of time in our professional development, we wish not to focus that development on the application and learning the applications of a new device such as an iPad. We much prefer to focus it on how do we empower our teachers to maximize instruction in these new programs. And so at this point, we believe that a Chromebook is what we need now, not necessarily what we need 3 years from now. And so as we looked at this in its totality, right, we said to purchase iPads for the 7th grade wouldn't really make a lot of sense right now, because then you'd have iPads and you would have MacBooks, and then they would be coming in having had experience with Chromebooks, right? Whereas now, all the 6th graders now are using Chromebooks. So we said, look, we don't want to move to iPads now. We may never want to move to iPads, but as we consider that, that's a big thing, including at the high school, we would need more time to discuss it. But at the short term, as we talk to our teachers in the building, our department chairs, and based on our experience, right, the students, by and large, with some small exceptions, are using their MacBooks, a very expensive device, as a web browser. And the reality is, a Chromebook will go toe-to-toe as a web browser with any other device. That's just the truth. And so we thought, look, if we purchase Chromebooks for the 7th graders, they are familiar with the use of Chromebooks anyway. They're only using them as browsers, so it wouldn't matter much if they had a Mac or a Chromebook. But here's the issue, right? We've been experiencing breakage in our MacBooks, right? To repair a MacBook, if we send it away, it costs about $400 for a screen, right? And when we looked at the rate of breakage for repair, and again, if we spend $400 in repair on a screen for a device that's residual value is barely just that, it really does raise some questions. So our thought was that if we were to purchase new Chromebooks for the 7th grade, it would meet the needs. If there were some specific things we had to do to allow a teacher that had a program that wouldn't work well on a Chromebook, we would do it with a cart or whatever it happens to be. The amount of money we would spend on new Chromebooks would be substantially less than the repair bills we would be paying on just repairing what we would anticipate to be a conservative estimate of broken MacBooks. And so it is for that reason, as we consider what's happening in the future, whether it's an iPad or a Chromebook going forward, that the perfect step, intermediate step along the way to allow us that conversation would be to have Chromebooks at the middle school. We think it would meet the instructional needs and it would cost comfortably less, and we would have machines that would have a longer lifespan. So that's really the basis of our recommendation, and that's kind of where we fell on this thing, which is not to say it's Chromebooks forever. It's just Chromebooks for 7th grade next year.
Dr. B, may I ask a question?
Of course.
We've had a lot of conversations. There's been a lot of conversation tonight about MacBook versus iPad versus Chromebooks. Was there much consideration around PCs and how PCs may play a role in our students' educations?
PCs were discussed. In fact, we contacted PCs are far rarer in the educational market than in the business and in outside of education. We did connect with a district that is PC based, Microsoft Office 365 based, and we found that the support of those devices and their experiences were not one that would prompt us to move in that direction. However, purchasing Chromebooks, because I like the idea of, I had actually came into this process liking the idea of PCs because of their near universal use in business and in science and different places. But we've kind of moved away from that, which doesn't mean we can't take up the issue again. Again, with the Chromebooks being just an intermediate step in 7th grade only. But yes, we did look at PCs, and we thought there were some complexities there that did not allow us to be able to adopt anything whole scale, which kind of led us toward the idea of a smaller scale solution.
Thank you, Dr. Mann.
I'd like to just add to the conversation. The staff devices are being refreshed, so we will have about 280, 290 of those staff MacBooks. We own them. We've owned them for the entire year to use for repairs or loaners. So we own those. There are no costs then going into the 24-25 school year if MacBooks remain in 7th grade. So there are no costs running in tandem with a task force who then can research tools that would enhance our curriculum, whether it be iPad, MacBook, PC, Chromebook, Fred Flintstone slate and a rock. That can be. MacBooks are present in public education. There's a neighboring district in Northampton County. There's one here locally in Lehigh County. I can rattle off a few in New Jersey. So it does work in public ed, and that comes down to those educators that are working with their students day to day. So I think it was Dr. Wayott's question, moving forward, if a MacBook remains in 7th grade just for 24-25, we'll have 280 some loaners from our staff to utilize to offset any of those costs, and then give that task force that time to really research what would work, what should be the driving tool. Yes, there's damage. We know that. There's damage to devices, and administration did share with the committee that 7th grade, 8th grade, the number, it kind of rises where the damage occurs. Putting a Chromebook might not be the solve. It's a cultural thing. Kids aren't taking care of their devices.
What do you mean? I mean cultural.
Please let her finish.
I want to clarify the cultural.
She's about to
aspect of
clarify
things.
it before you interrupted her. Let her complete.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead.
It's a situation where we need to address how to take care of your device. How do I, whatever I'm giving, whether it be Chromebook, but there's something when in our middle school, there is a jump of the damage. So we should look at that root cause as to what is the damage, why that is increasing. So Yeah, when I said culture, I meant the school culture of our kids taking care of their device. Am I out? Can you hear me? I feel like I'm out. I hear myself in my head. So I
But
just
it's-
wanted
it's-
to bring that around, not for or against the Chromebook, but
Madam President, I have a
No,
question.
stay,
What is the
stay
difference
forth
in
with what
cost?
we have
Committee
in,
chair's gonna complete
in
her
order to
statement.
create that task force to really align technology and integrate it with curriculum.
What is the difference in cost?
Well,
I will say a Chromebook
Zero.
itself costs about $225 or $250 if memory serves. Don't hold me to that, but I think it's maybe $250. I think $250 comes to mind. And Mrs. Torb is totally correct in saying that we will have spares, but our intention is to sell back the spares if we have Chromebooks. And so while we will not have to pay for the repair, we will forego the revenue we would have otherwise received. So whether it's paying for a repair or foregoing the revenue, there is an actual cost to a broken Chromebook, or excuse me, a broken MacBook that we would have to fix.
Okay, what is the difference in cost between a MacBook and a Chromebook?
A Chromebook roughly is $225. A MacBook, if you were to purchase a new one with the warranty, is like $1125 or something
Wow.
like that.
So
That, again, off the top of my head.
that's a pretty substantial.
So what you
difference
do
in
get with the
price.
MacBook, though, is that value.
Well,
So
the
as
value-
Dr.
but
Mann
the value-
stated,
we just heard that primarily what students are using these devices for is browsing. Okay, so does a seventh grader really need that kind of power and that kind of capability? I think that, you're at a junction here, and I don't want to have volunteers who jump in at the last minute as a committee member, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have committees doing this, second guessing experienced administrators in education on these decisions regarding these kinds of purchases, which are pretty substantial. I think that difference in price is significant, and that has to weigh into our decision as a board.
it does, and I feel that you just targeted me, and I do work in ed tech for 25 years. So not questioning administration and the cost here.
Targeted the
Not cost,
administration.
not
Hold on,
targeting
hold
the
on. We are going to
administration
talk one
and
at a time.
cost.
It is Ms. Torba's
Just
turn.
putting it out so that we, as a whole, can have a task force to understand how we can really integrate the technology. So a Chromebook is roughly $250. Thank you for sharing that. Roughly $250. And once it's out of the box, it's worth $0. That MacBook out of the box, what we pay and what it can retain in its value. Our staff devices may get $325, $350 on return on that buyback. So that's where we have some flexibility on those 280 staff devices. Keep some as our repairs and sell some back, and that's revenue generated.
But it costs
For this
$1,100.
24,
But it costs $1,100, so there's still a significant,
Well,
there's more of a depreciation with the MacBook
let's
than there is
just say,
Chromebook.
cost aside for one moment.
Thank you, Mr. Mon, for cost aside.
For one moment, there had to been some background work done, as I understand it from when I was at the committee meeting listening, that there were discussions with the staff requesting, asking of whether or not the Chromebooks would be acceptable or not for the seventh graders. And I understood that to be yes. That's what I understood. So when we talk about the staff and them being against maybe having the transition to Chromebooks, I'm a little confused because of the meeting. We talked about that, and a question came up about the staff and the buy-in of the staff. Additionally, when it comes to a Chromebook versus a PC or a Mac for that matter, the Chromebooks are cloud-based. There's zero setup. They have automatic virus updates and control. They're almost nothing to configure them versus a PC or a Mac where you need to put in all sorts of configurations as the administrator for those devices. And also, the fact of the matter is, owning a technology company, the entire planet is moving toward cloud-based computing. We're doing the same thing. The Chromebook is a cloud device. The MacBook, as I understand it, through the committee, is being used mainly as a web browser, which means that all of the capabilities that are being used in the high school with labs and all sorts of other experimentations and homework is not necessary in the 7th grade classroom. So the question is, from transitioning from 6th grade to 7th grade, from a student standpoint, which is why we're all here, they're already very familiar with the Chromebooks, right? They're cloud-based, so there's near zero setup time. It has automatic updates and virus control just by logging in. They can be swapped out at a moment's notice in the event there is a damaged Chromebook. And then we could also have, in the case of arts and other things, music, where there's a need for, let's say, the MacBook or a particular app. There are other ones that are comparable, or there could be additional, out of the extras, could be used for the music program so that that would be seamless. So I see that as almost a win-win situation. We have buy-in evidently from the teachers. We've got a budgeting advantage from the standpoint of cost. We have higher security. We have quicker setup times. We still have the ability from those other 250 to provide them, in the case of music, theater, and other arts, to be used as a MacBook, if that's an advantage. And we can work that out. So I think those were the points that we discussed. Well, I didn't discuss, but was discussed mainly in the committee by all the different folks. So the question then is, you know, when you take the inclusive information, which way is the better way to go? I thought coming out of that meeting, I felt that we were hitting the key points. Students being able to utilize the Chromebooks in a seamless way. Cost from a finance standpoint. Cybersecurity from an IT standpoint. And still have the ability to utilize MacBooks where there's a niche focus in the curriculum. So I just want to put that out there. Everybody has their own choice, but I tend to see, based on that meeting, that we should probably vote for the Chromebooks at this point. And by the way, I agree from a strategic planning standpoint, the school district needs to put together, similar to what we have in the facilities, a longer range plan on technology that may in fact move and dodge depending on technology advancements, but you can't plan 5 years for technology at this point. Yeah, it's 2 to 3 years, something like that is probably the best you can do. And the fact that we're moving toward cloud-based computing as a society, this fits with that mold and we begin to transition. And that doesn't mean that the MacBooks are gone from the high school or anywhere else at this particular moment. But anyway, I will stop. That's my opinion on it. Thank you.
No.
Hold
One
on.
thing-
Get your mic going and
Sorry.
then.
I think the one thing too to understand is that we're talking about doing 280-ish units of Chromebook, which is roughly around a $70,000 purchase. It doesn't address the fact that we do have classrooms in the middle school that, from the feedback that we got back from the teachers within the middle school, we would need to keep about 2 carts of MacBooks from the leftover teachers, that we would need to keep those on hand. So that would be approximately 60 less units that would be sold back. So now we're talking about roughly 280 minus 60, so we have 220 units left over. We still have the fact that the high school has 4 grades of MacBooks without the ability to have any kind of support or fixed value that we would have to send out for repair. So that means we would still have to also keep out of that remaining 220-ish units from the math there, from the middle school carts, we would still need to keep, I don't know, 100, 150-ish maybe MacBooks on hand for just in case if anything at the high school level would happen to fail, so that way we can substitute back in, which means then we have maybe roughly around 50 units left that we would be able to even sell back at that point, which that comes out to roughly around 16,000, 20,000 in that range of buyback value. But then if you go with the Chromebook, you're spending 70,000, so then we'd still end up spending 50K plus with what my math I'm averaging out versus just using the MacBooks to supplement and figure out what our full strategy, because we are going to have to figure out next year at the high school level in regards to figuring out how do we substitute and substantiate the issue there. So I just wanted to bring that up in terms of the fact that, yeah, we are talking about the Chromebooks, but there's a little bit more nuance into the what still remains, what still actually goes back to sell, and what still has to stay in order to supplement should anything that has no warranty on it fail in the interim, so it does not subject any students to any kind of academic delay or issues within the classroom.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to, I said this in committee, I'll say it again here. We're talking about, one of my concerns is some teachers were asked, can you do this at 7th grade? It would mean a middle school where half the student population would have an Apple device and the other half would not have an Apple device. It means some teachers who teach both 7th and 8th grade, they would have to shuffle. It means that special ed students from both grades would, and Apple devices, as a representative of the IU, Apple devices are much more tailored in many circumstances to providing the kind of adapted technology needed for those students. That's another consideration. But our teachers have already left the building. They are, well, except for the dedicated ones in the audience right now, and thank you for coming, but they've left the building. So what we're also talking about is making a decision now in which teachers will, when they return in August, be handed their brand new device and also be told that, in 4 days, you'll also have all these students coming in and you'll have to figure out as 7th grade teachers and other teachers throughout the building how to adapt your lesson plans and planning to fit this new device for a Chromebook, which you've never dealt with before in your classroom. And you'll have to learn how to manage the new classroom management app, because you can't use Apple to Apple anymore, Apple Classroom. And we're going to encounter problems with our new school information system. I'm blanking. StudySync? Infinite Campus, I'm sorry. Infinite Campus. There are going to be snafus, as there always are when you roll out a program. And so teachers have to deal and students have to deal with all of that, on top of the fact that in the middle school, whatever happens perhaps with Infinite Campus, when you troubleshoot that building, you're going to have to troubleshoot it twice, once for the Chromebooks and once for the MacBooks. Teachers, administrators are asked, can you do this? Sure. Our Southern Lehigh teachers said, yep, we can do anything. This is what we're going to need to help us. But of course they said, yeah, we can do this. But that's a huge lift. And also to ask a building administrator or two, to manage a building where half of it is one device and half of it is another. Like, we're making this decision and teachers are gone is the other, in addition to the financial concerns, in addition to all the other concerns. And I stated it in committee and I'll state it again. I'm a no for this, because also as my fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of this community, in addition to supporting kids and doing what's in the best interest of kids, my fiduciary responsibility does not allow me to vote for an expenditure that doesn't fit an overall long-term plan. I do not feel comfortable with that. And we do have an alternative to see us through until we can form that task force. There are a lot of great points that were raised tonight. Mr. Mont, Dr. Wick, Ms. Great points raised all around. And if we buy ourselves a year by not implementing Chromebooks in 7th grade, that task force can address and we can come up with a much more holistic, better plan, long-term plan. And that's where I stand on this.
I would just say with respect, I want to understand the administration's viewpoint on the homework that was done with respect to buy-in or discussions with the staff. I'm still under the impression that that was accomplished, and, you know, the administration are the ones that are running the show, and I would say that there had to have been those discussions. It wasn't tonight here with, let's say, teachers that have already left. I don't believe that's the case, is it? Is that the case?
Mr. Brown, we did speak with department leaders at the middle school. We had a sense that this was going to be okay. The committee asked us, very much appropriately so, hey, could you just make sure here? And then we went back, and again, those discussions could be characterized by anyone in any way. That's fine. But we wrote a report. In fact, I linked it, and many board members may not have had the chance to see, but it's linked to one of your emails, and it was a report back from the perspectives that were received, and it's just, we've come to the view that the teachers are not concerned over this, and I really don't know much more to say beyond that.
I have a comment. Oh, sorry, Steve. It seems like we're making a much bigger deal out of it than it really is. When my daughter went to college, they said, essentially get whatever computer you want. And some kids have PCs, some have Chromebooks. It's what you can afford. So if we're preparing these kids to eventually go to college and we give them a MacBook and then their parent can't afford it when they get there, then maybe it's good that they learn on a less expensive computer so they know what to do. But all the kids manage to go to class and still participate and do all the same things. I just think we're just making a huge deal about it. If the administration says this is the cost-effective way and we're trying to keep taxpayers' money low while also giving money to other programs, this just seems like a no-brainer to just do what is cost-effective. It's all going to work out.
Yep, Mr. Kearney.
I mean, I understand the cost aspect of it, and I would say if we were doing let's get rid of Apple, they're too expensive, we're going to roll over to Chrome, they're less expensive, and they do what we need them to do, I would understand better what you're saying about the cost effectiveness, but I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing that we're getting rid of Chromes in all the grades. I'm hearing I don't know what we're doing, which is that long-term planning. And so that, I mean, we still have them in 7th through 12th, correct? The max. Yeah, so then we're not talking about replacing all of those over the next few years with Chrome. So to do it in 7th grade, I don't know how much it's fitting into a long-range plan. The other thing is, having been in charge of a building with carts and rollouts and tech people to repair them, I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble having two different kinds of computers in the same building, whereas, you know, individuals going to college is one thing, having the building leader distributing and overseeing two different types of computers in the same building. If teachers are saying it's not a problem, I guess I would have liked to have heard a little bit more from them. The other thing is from the tech committee, while people are discounting their opinion, if the tech committee has looked into it, and I'm understanding, I did not hear a recommendation that you're saying to support this motion. And I know if the education committee looked into something, we came with a recommendation not to support a curriculum, I would hope that that would be some kind of valued opinion. People can still vote how they want, of course. And this discussion has been important. But to me, a recommendation coming from a committee is important too. Not discounting administrative opinion. Don't mean to do that either.
All right, thanks, Mr. Kearney. Everybody's had a chance. I'd like to call the question at this time. Is that, everyone's had a chance to, I'm sorry, did I miss? Did we had a motion and a second, correct?
Yeah, you're good.
We good? I'd like to call the question. Yeah? Oh, Candy, do you have something to say? You're mic'd in if you'd like. Okay. All right. In that case, we have a motion and a second. I will say all those in favor.
I vote yes, but I am discouraged that after having the meeting that I was at the other day, didn't have a definitive agreement, even with the committee, and was not stated as far as I saw at the end of the meeting. Maybe I misinterpreted that, but coming out of that meeting, there was not a vehement no.
Steve, respectfully, we're past discussion. We're past discussion. We're just voting.
So
your vote is yes?
I vote yes based upon the administration's recommendations and that they did their due diligence on it.
I vote yes based upon Mr. Maud's witnessing that committee meeting and they're supporting that.
Yes.
All right. I have 4 yeses. Wayock, Reinhardt, Mond, and King. Any opposed?
No.
No?
Nope.
Is that a no, Ms. Cruz, I assume, for opposed? Okay, thank you. So motion does not carry 5-4. Thank you all for the robust discussion. Appreciate the administration's recommendation. Appreciate the committee's recommendation and the discussion that happened after that.
Ms. Gaiman, what happens now with computers for 7th grade then?
We discussed at the committee level. There's a contingency if that motion failed.
Okay.
There's
It's just
plans.
a status quo. They'll just keep the devices that they have.
Thank you.
MacBooks, yes. Moving on to item 6, human resources. Can I have a motion to approve personnel items
So moved.
presented in that human resources? Thank you. Was that Dr. Wack?
Yes.
And a second? Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Dr. Ake-Little, anything of note? I don't think we have any major retirements. It's a very short report at this time.
No,
right?
it's
Okay.
we are welcoming 2 new people into the fold. One
wonderful.
that we're familiar with, our district social worker, and one who is new to our community, a Spanish immersion teacher.
Wonderful.
Very excited to have them both, and they're very excited to come to us.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. All right, motion and a second.
And first,
I'm
I
sorry?
want to also recognize that we do have one of our teachers that just recently retired, Mr. Ed Sinclair, at the high school level, and just want to thank you for his support and all that he's put through. I know he was one of my teachers back in high school, so
Ooh.
I appreciate that.
Way to date your teacher when you're. No,
It's
thank you
not
for that.
that long ago.
We received a letter from Mr. Sinclair this week, so he is front of mind. And yes, we wish him the best in retirement, and we appreciate his communication. All right, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to policy, first and second readings. This pretty much comprises my policy committee report for the evening. The second reading of policies, we've been through those before, and a motion to approve the first reading of policies. I just want to say there was some discussion, I know previously at board meetings, to provide the board with red line policies. I'm not sure, I believe those who requested them received them. If that is not the case, Dr. Mann will be sure to get those to folks in the future, those red line policies. Okay, good. I thought we were doing that. If not, nope. All right, well, yep. Listen. I'm bringing this up because I know that was, and the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mann. All right, so motion to approve the second reading of those policies listed.
So moved.
And can you mind if I combine them both and motion to
Nope.
approve the first reading of those policies?
Combine them both.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Waite, for that motion. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Committee reports. Policy report is done. I think technology report
is sufficient. We're done. Facilities, anything to add?
Yep, I'll just real brief, keep it short. So facilities, we met back on June 4th. The administration under Mr. Rohrbach and Mr. Pepe provided us an update on the HVAC project. Things are moving along swimmingly. And as of where it stands currently right now, everything is on pace for finishing on time and getting the AC back in working order come before the school year. We also were provided an update that Mr. Pepe and his team have submitted for some very substantial grants that we're hopeful for that are in support of the Liberty Bell roof project, middle school roof project, and also the Liberty Bell chillers project. So hopefully we should hear back sometime soon, Mr. Pepe, roughly, maybe, if we get it. If we get it. So keep your fingers crossed. And then additionally, we had some conversation in regards to the RFP for the library, which thankful for the board at the last meeting approving moving that forward for the RFP process. I was told tonight by Mr. Pepe that that has been submitted. And then also in with that is also scope update and change potentially for the auditorium at the high school level. There'll be ongoing discussion with both the library and auditorium kind of in tandem as we start getting responses back from that RFP process. There's also the discussion that we had in regards to referencing an older KCBNA report that will also be used to address any kind of potential areas of interest for those two facilities specifically. So things are starting to moving along from there and look forward to more engaging conversation as the months come up.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Mr. Carney, education or ACMC?
Ed committee, we just talked about the RFP, so that was our topic. ACMC, we met in May 16th.
Oh, you already reported.
And then we were supposed to meet on Wednesday, but that got canceled because there was no approvals coming up. So our next meeting will be July 17th. LCTI, I tried to save some time, so I sent all the board members my report early. But just for the public's sake, I was very proud to see LCTI Outstanding Career in Tech Ed Senior Award went to Carly Byrne from Southern Lehigh for welding tech. It was quite an honor, and Mr. Mond and Mike and I were at that senior awards night. There's a waiting list of about 300 students, 31st consecutive clean audit they had. They were very proud of that. They have LVHN works with them. They had 35 total student caseload that they're working with. They meet with them once a week. We have 12 students, I think, 13 students from Southern Lehigh work-based co-op. And I listed all the different organizations that are helping out LCTI students. The amount of certificates went up that they awarded. They had a lot of students going on to LTRI-C. And I think one of the messages that came out is that some people see LCTI as an alternative to college prep, and they're trying to get past that. That they have some terrific programs, a veterinarian's program, an education program. And so it definitely is something to consider.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carney. And the CLAU, we have our upcoming meeting on the 17th, whatever the third Monday is. So I will report out on that at our next meeting. That concludes committee reports. I don't believe we have any new business. Other business?
Other business, I have a couple.
Mr. Carney?
Memorial Day, I was happy to see some of our students at Saucon Park for Memorial Day. It was and the DJs here too. That was a wonderful program. I was happy to see our students here. Graduation, again, I just want to thank Mr. Miller. That was the first one I went to, and the choir and the music, again, that just added to it. The Freddie Awards, congratulations. We had a winner, and we had a scholarship, a full scholarship to West Virginia University.
Yeah.
So that was incredible. Plus, it was fun to watch on TV. May 14th, I went to SLEA's retirement function, and I just want to point out that that's not just for their members. They do it for custodians, secretaries. Everybody that's retiring is invited. So I wouldn't mind. at some point our district doing something, even if it's just inviting retirees in for a board meeting and giving them a plaque or a certificate or something, some kind of recognition in the future. Because
At the elementary schools, by the way, too.
right now, Southern Lehigh EA is footing that bill on their own for different bargaining units. So just helping them out a little bit. That's it.
Thanks, Mr. Carney. Yeah, I attended the retirement dinner as well with you, that event. I would like to say, I would echo your comments, end of year ceremony that used to exist that was discussed widely at the retirement dinner, being conscientious of tax dollars, but for free, we used to put on a slideshow of everyone's teaching career when you got to see how young they were when they started here. And that the entire staff for the whole school met in an auditorium, a slideshow was played, Happy Trails was played, completely free. Little tokens of you got your pen when you had, a couple years of service, your brass apple, your plaque, your things like that. And I understand that that was even, carried on during COVID years, but at some point fell off. I would really like to see that come back. I was not aware that that fell off. I would really like to see that free of charge, end of year, whole staff coming together to celebrate everybody's achievements, years of service, and the Happy Trails slideshow. So I think that, regardless, Mr. Carney, when you talk about SLEA foot in the bill, I don't want to take on foot in the bill, but I think we could probably whip up and continue with that tradition of recognition and slideshow, and I'd be willing to do something even from a board fund standpoint to supply those brass apples and little plaques that are handed out just to recognize years of service. But I thoroughly enjoyed seeing everybody, teachers past and present, at that retirement event as well. Anyone else for other business? All right, seeing none, we have a field trip requests for information only. It is the esports team post there. I understand that we have great results from this. I understand our middle school esports team went to Harrisburg, and I believe they won states in their first year. So congratulations are in order, and we commend them for that. So that was for information only attached to your agenda. Moving back to visitor comments, I'm just going to refresh here to see who signed in. I saw some folks going up to that computer in the back. Sorry, while I refresh. Ooh. Yeah, actually, we have a strike through but you can also sign up electronically, wirelessly. So first to speak, I have Lisa Maloney. Oh, left two. All right, sorry. Julie Bird, she's here. Okay.
Testing? Yes, no? Yeah, all right, check that out. All right, this evening, Ms. Reinhardt suggested that nonprofit organizations that work to the direct benefit of students should not be called on to shoulder resources for our students, and instead taxpayers should be asked to handle these expenses. So to that end, and as an incoming kindergarten parent, I would like the board to consider proposing to pay for agenda books, school-wide positive behavior materials, and scholastic readers that are used at Hopewell and Liberty Bell and are currently paid for by those PTAs that enhance the learning for all students in K to 3. The PTA at Hopewell and Liberty Bell are 501c3 organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Shannon Stokes. Shannon Stokes.
Hopefully this won't cause feedback with my
Nope,
laptop.
you're good.
All right. This has been an eye-opening evening. Thank you, Mr. Mond, for identifying the dysfunction and tension evident tonight. I am hopeful that our board and administration can work together for the good of our children. You are being watched. Thank you also, Mr. Mond, for your point that this budgeting process, in your words, needs to be cleaned up. And I wonder whether some of this mess exists because we have an athletic director, but our district's clubs and activities do not have that same level of administrative support, knowledge, communication, and coordination. I am not recommending or suggesting a new hire, but I wonder whether it wouldn't make sense to have a single administrator who is aware of all student activities and athletic group needs, including facility needs, staffing needs, someone who can be a liaison with all the different parent booster clubs and 501c3s. This person would be able to ensure that there are adequate coaching ratios, adequate funding, adequate facilities, adequate technologies. Because as we hear, not, it's from elementary to high school, there's a lot of inequity. I also heard both administration and a board member express concern that tonight's discussion may open a slippery slope of other groups who are also inadequately staffed or inadequately funded using volunteer effort, time, and money. As a district, one important way we express our community's values is through our spending. I thank you for your support tonight, and I hope moving forward that there can be better alignment of our professed values. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Renee D'Amico. Okay, pass. Next and last, I have Christine C. Schultz.
Hi. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, that's close. Hi. So I haven't been here for the whole thing, but I've been listening to you because I was at hockey and then I had phone calls. And so first and foremost, I want to thank all of you on the board. This has been a very long night for you all, but thank you on the board for all recognizing the need recognizing our need that the theater needs more money and more paid stipends. So happy you could all agree on that. What I really came here for was there was the conversation about the general fund. And again, I think we're all kind of missing the picture. And I know the D'Amicos did a great job explaining the operating costs and the fixed costs, and I get that. But then we went to the general fund. And so my background, because you guys probably don't know it, is I am a CPA. I worked at KPMG. That's where I started my career for over 5 years. I've actually done university government. So I understand budgeting and the process. So I am also the parent liaison for the theater department. So with all of the turnover that we've had with the past two, right? So I've been here for 3 years. I am happy to answer any questions, especially the financial numbers. So if you guys have any questions, please, please, please reach out. I am happy to showcase anything and what we spend the money on, because trust me, moving up $13,000, it's a huge help, but it's not like we're now going to have like glitter cannons, correct? Like it's not happening. I would love it, but not happening. So when we set about raising the budget to 25, which is an increase of 13,000, then it went to the general fund about taking away the ticket sales, which are over 30,000. Clearly, that does not make any sense. And you don't need to be an accountant. That's just math. And if we would have to ask for every single thing, it's just not efficient, right? So thank you for raising that. But it's really the paid stipends to make sure that we get a music director paid, to make sure we have a pit orchestra director so that our kids can be playing the music, because our kids are amazing. Our kids are here and we have that amazing debate team. We have awesome teachers and resources. And Mr. Long is a national treasure who's just one of our many amazing teachers that we have here. So we would just like to employ our teachers that they can help us make a fabulous musical. So thank you so much for all of your time. Thank you for everything you do. And again, I still do not envy your positions, but thank you for working for our children and for our community and making it the best it can be. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. That concludes visitor comment for this evening. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.
I'm sorry, what? Are we forgoing it? What, do you have anything you need to cover?